You know what series never gets old for me? Mario Party. On top of all the creative and fun modes scattered across all the games, there are over 1,000 minigames to keep you entertained for ages. But have you ever been playing a minigame and got a weird sense of deja vu, like you've played it before? It's no secret that Mario Party Top 100 and Superstars brought back 100 OG minigames each, but you'd be surprised at how many minigames were heavily inspired or straight up ripoffs of other minigames. Now these minigames are still an absolute blast, don't get me wrong, but how many minigames did Nintendo reuse? Are the newer versions better or worse? These are the questions this video is going to answer. To do this, we'll be going through each Mario Party by release date and discuss which of its original minigames inspired others. Some of the minigames may just be copied and pasted, maybe there were small changes made to improve some issues, or maybe the minigames are completely different but have the same controls and objectives. We'll be talking about it all, so strap in. Oh, and I didn't include a lot of the spam A button minigames because they're pretty much the same thing. Mario Party 1, the one that started it all. These minigames are incredibly toxic, which is exactly what I'm looking for in a Mario Party. The first minigame is Hot Bomb Om. It's pretty much hot potato with a live bomb. There are actually no winners here, just one loser, the person who blows up. No one gains any coins, the loser just loses coins. Mario Party 2 then brought it back, but now it's in a stadium surrounded by other bombs. Not a good idea, and you have to press B to catch the bomb, which adds a different element, making it intense, simple, and fun. Mario Party 7's Bomb-omic Plague has 8 players who are all sharing 4 controllers, pass a bomb clockwise to each other. When the bomb goes off, it takes out the 2 players on either side of the exploding player. It's a lot more luck-based and you can't target certain players like the other games. Super Mario Party's Lit Potato is the same thing except with multiple bombs at once, and the allies you collect in the board mode will help you out as teammates, which I'm not the biggest fan of. Treasure Divers is a coin minigame that has players diving for treasure chests in the ocean. You have to bring it back to the surface in order to collect the coins, but swimming into any of the aquatic animals will make you drop the chest. It's the exact same minigame in Jamboree, except with better graphics and smoother controls, so I'll label it the better version. In Crazy Cutters, players have to jackhammer a shape out of the ground as accurate as possible. One's is fine, but there's only one shape, boo. Two's is the same, but now there are 3 different shapes to cut. The problem I have with 1 and 2's version is that it can be difficult knowing where to cut. What I think is the center of the line is actually not, so even though mine looks better than the AI's, they will win. In Superstars, however, this problem is fixed because you can clearly see where you have to cut. And now there's a really difficult chain chomp stage, which I love, so this is my favorite version. Next is the very popular facelift, where you have to pull the face to match the example as best as possible. It's fun, goofy, but again, 1's only has 1 face to mess around with. But 2's version, which I'm naming the best, has 6 different unique faces at your disposal. I can turn Princess Peach into an 80s mom or Wario into Dumbo. It's awesome. Top 100 brought back Mario Party 1's version, but now Bowser's face is much more detailed, which makes the faces look even more goofy, but they're still only his face, which is a little disappointing. Lastly is Superstars, which for some reason is the exact same case. And I noticed that the faces you have to make are a lot less goofy and hilarious, which made this minigame so fun in the first place. Balloon Burst is a minigame where you have to time your pumps perfectly to inflate Bowser the quickest. 1's was a bit choppy for some reason, and the balloons mush together when they get bigger. In 2, you now work with a teammate to pop Bowser, and now there's a gauge to help you time your pumps better. I also love the face Bowser makes when he's about to bust. In 3's Pumpin' Away, you again work with a teammate to propel a rocket into the sky farther than your opponents. It's a bit more creative, and you can try to beat your record. In the spirit of popping balloons faster than your opponents, 6's Pop Star is a 1v3 minigame where the solo player has to spam A and the team has to ground pound. It's fun, but good luck beating a team of master difficulty bots. It's actually impossible. 9's Launch Break is the winner in my opinion, because there are 3 different segments with different controls you have to spam. My favorite part is that when the rockets are flying through the sky, you can see exactly which segment each player did the best at. The winner of 10's Balloon Bash is whoever has the biggest balloon. But if you pump too much, you can pop the balloon and lose. I love the gambling element of trying to inch your way to victory, but if you wanted to, you can learn exactly how many pumps it takes to pop your balloon, which guarantees victory every time, which defeats the purpose. Lastly is Superstars, which adopted 2's version. I love how detailed it looks, but the pumps are much slower, which kinda makes it easier for everyone. Skateboard Scamper is a game that has players running from impending doom while jumping over obstacles. Whoever finishes first wins. I love the lava look of 1s, but you can't actually pass your opponents till the very end, which makes most of the minigame kinda pointless. Unfortunately, it's the same thing in 2s, except now we're in a spooky mansion running from ghosts, which I honestly don't like as much as the lava look. 3's Cheap Chase is very similar, but now we're swimming from a giant fish, and instead of jumping over obstacles, you're diving underneath them. You can kinda get ahead, but they can still just catch up and move at the same pace until the very end again. Superstars brought back that same minigame, except it fixed one big issue I had with all the other versions. Every version required you to spam A to move and press B to jump or dive, which made it kinda awkward holding the controller. But now you can use the left joystick to dive instead, which feels a lot better. And it feels like you can keep the lead a bit easier, so this is the clear winner for me. Platform peril is next on the list. Players have to jump across different platforms, collecting coins along the way, and trying to be the first to finish. 1s is pretty basic compared to 2s because of all the different types of platforms, which makes the skill gap a bit bigger, but there are a lot less coins to collect. Similar to the last set of minigames we talked about, in 1s and 2s versions, there's an invisible barrier preventing players from getting ahead, so as long as you don't fall off or run into any obstacles, you pretty much have an equal chance of winning. So almost every time, all the players would finish at the exact same time, but there would still only be one winner. But when Nintendo brought it back in Jamboree, I believe they realized this issue and decided to just make it a coin minigame where the objective wasn't to finish first, but to collect as many coins as you can. I wish they brought 2's version back with all the different platforms because it is a bit easy, but I still enjoy this one the most. Tightrope Treachery is a minigame where one player has to balance themselves on a rope and reach the finish line while the other 3 players are below them trying to knock them off with cannons. 2's version is exactly the same as 1's, but now it's in the sky on a rainbow and the 3 players are floating on clouds, which I enjoy slightly more. It's also now called Rainbow Run. Mushroom Mix-Up is an absolute classic. Players have to scramble to move to the right colored mushroom that is signaled by Toad holding up a flag. It's fun, chaotic, and super toxic. 2's Hexagon Heat is my personal favorite because it's just as fun as the original, but replacing the water with lava sets a more intense mood. 7's Give Me a Sign is pretty similar. It's a dual minigame where Toad will hold up symbols that indicate which platforms will fall, and you have to avoid falling with them. It can be pretty intense and fun once the speed picks up, but you can't interact with the other players, which isn't as fun in my opinion. Top 100 brought back 2's version, but now each hexagon also has a different shape, I'm guessing for colorblind people, which I guess is nice. Superstars then adopted 1's version. The reason I like 2's more than Top 100s and Superstars is because of how you interact with other players. If you noticed in 1 and 2, jumping on an opponent's head will bounce you in unpredictable directions, where in the other versions you just bounce straight up and down. This means that if you get to a space first, you can try to body block other players and force them to bounce off when they attempt to jump onto a space. It was just a fun added toxic element I wish they kept. Grab Bag is an absolute feeding frenzy where players have to try to snag coins out of other players' bags. The mechanics can be a bit janky, but the worst part is that you use your own coins, so you can absolutely get cleaned out. Thankfully, 2's changed this by replacing coins with mushrooms because I'm not trying to go broke because someone can press B better than me. If you played any Mario Party ever, you've probably run into some iteration of bumper balls. You're on a simple platform rolling on balls trying to knock the other players off. It's pretty fun in the beginning, but when there are only 2 players left, because the bounce mechanics aren't that bouncy, it can kinda leave them at a stalemate. It's the same issue in 2's, except the different platforms help speed things up a bit if they can take advantage of them. But now in 7's 8-player bumper to bumper, the mechanics are too bouncy. It goes by way too quick, and it seems whoever gets to the center first will end up being the winner. 9's Bumper Sparks has you working with a teammate to defeat Baby Bowser. The bounce mechanics feel perfect in this one, I just wish there was an option to play free-for-all. Bumper Thumper in Island Tour is my favorite so far because now you have to launch yourself at your enemies instead of rolling into them. There's no doubt you'll be able to knock your opponents off, now it's just about good timing. Star Rush's Coin Chaos minigame, Rolling Rumble, takes 1 and 2's bumper balls, the bounce mechanics of 9's, the launch mechanics of Island Tours, and turned it into a single-player minigame where you have to knock off as many Shy Guys as you can, collecting coins to advance in the board section. This would be the perfect minigame if it was a 4-player battle royale, but it's not. Top 100 brought back the lava stage from 2, but the bounce mechanics are way too high. Each round lasted like 5 seconds max. Super Mario Party's Bumper Brawl has players and their collected allies inside the balls trying to knock each other off, but it's still a little too chaotic for my liking. Third time's a charm though, because Superstars perfected Bumper Balls. You can still pick from the 3 stages, the movement feels faster, the bounciness is not too much or too little, and obviously it looks amazing. And lastly, part of Mario's 3-Peat Showdown minigame, the minigame makes another appearance, but it's not the true full experience. Finally, moving on, we have Tipsy Tourney, a minigame where you have to guide a shell to uncover a picture. The picture in 1's looks like it was taken with a smart fridge, but thankfully 2's looks a lot better and is animated as well. Unfortunately, the picture isn't animated in Superstars, but the mechanics and physics feel so smooth, I have to give it the win. Bombs Away has 4 players on an island trying not to get shot off from a distant cannon. It can be a little easy if you just time your jumps when a cannonball is about to hit. I enjoy 2's a lot more because there's different types of projectiles. There's the standard cannonballs, but there are also deadly torpedoes that will annihilate you. And if you survive all that, there's a final boss torpedo that will instantly one-shot you. I love the original, but I'm gonna have to declare Star Rush's Bowser's Power Bomb the winner of this bunch because it isn't as easy and you have to focus on more than just jumping. You have to avoid falling off the moving platform, box up your opponents to try to knock them off, all while avoiding Bowser's deadly bombs from above. It's an absolute death brawl and I love it. Top 100 brought back 1s, but now the cannonballs are bigger and slower, which feels even more easy to avoid. Superstars followed in its footsteps, but decided to return the speed of the cannonballs, which is nice, but the physics make no sense. When you approach the edge, it feels like you fall up the slope instead of down. Shy Guy Says is another hood classic, even though I suck at it. It's pretty self-explanatory. You press A to raise the white flag and B to raise the red, and you have to raise the one Shy Guy raises. If you fail, you get cast to sea. But be very careful because this guy loves to troll and psych you out. 2's is the exact same thing, now players are suspended in the air and Shy Guy uses a bow and arrow to snipe you down if you get it wrong. A bit brutal if you ask me. In 8's extra minigame section, you'll find flagging rights, but instead of pressing buttons, you use the Wii's Wii Remote and Nunchuck's motion controls to raise the flags. It's neat, but it would have been nice if it was just a regular minigame against other players. Top 100 and Superstars adopted 1s, except now you use the bumpers instead, which feels a lot more comfortable in your hands. They're pretty identical, but the win goes to Superstars because it looks a lot better. And once again, the last version is Jamborees in Mario's 3-Peat, which is still great, but again, it's not the true experience. Next is a minigame I have a personal vendetta against, Castaways. You have to cast your line and try to reel in treasure, and for some reason I can never get the controls right. I always end up walking away with 0 coins. Apart from Superstars looking much better, I actually was able to get the controls down. I don't know if it's because of the explanation or what, but I had a much better time with it. Hot Rope Jump has players jumping over a fiery jump rope in order to survive. 1's is so weird because if one player loses, the game ends, or if all players make it to 20 jumps, they all win. 2's makes a lot more sense because it goes until there's only one person left. 7's Grin and Bar It is an 8-player minigame where players have to jump over a very wobbly bar. It's fun and simple, but it doesn't really make sense for it to be a team game, but there's not really a choice because 2 players have to share one controller. I can already see myself losing and then just yoinking the controller out of my friend's hand to make him lose. 8's Chump Rope will always have a special place in my heart. It's a 1v3 minigame where one player controls the speed of the jump rope and the team has to jump over it. It's a fun mind game due to the opponent speeding up and slowing down the jump rope, but it would have been nice to just have to press a button to jump instead of uppercutting our Wii Remote every time. But the last and best version is Superstars, which adopted 2's. It's pretty much the same except in free play you can decide to play the game endless, which is super fun seeing how long you could last. Hammer Drop has players scrambling to collect coins thrown by this funky looking hammer bro while avoiding hammers. It's super chaotic and the AIs are way too good at predicting exactly where the coins are gonna drop. Superstars version is much smoother, the platform is bigger, and you actually have a chance to collect coins even with hard AIs. Oh, and Hammer Bro looks like he laid off the drugs a bit. Slot Car Derby is another fan favorite where players have to control the speed of their slot car to avoid spinning out and cross the finish line first. 1 only offers the one track and it's pretty small and simple, but 2 offers 3 bigger and more unique tracks to play on, which all offer different levels of difficulties. DS's Pedal Pushers is very similar, except instead of just holding the joystick forward, you have to spam all the buttons in the directional pad. It's not as fast-paced and interesting to look at than the 64 games. I absolutely love Top 100s for a couple of reasons. For one, the camera is only focused on you and you alone because of it being on the 3DS. Secondly, you can knock players completely off the track, which is so toxic. I don't know if you could do this before, but I've never seen it. And lastly is that once a player wins, the other three can still compete, which is nice if you're playing with friends. It is unfortunate though that there is only the one track. The last, and again, best version is Superstars. It looks absolutely stunning. You can choose to play on the 3 tracks, but the main reason it's the winner here is because it fixed one issue I had with all the other versions. In order to avoid spinning out around corners, you have to stop accelerating and slow down. When you did this, you lost an unreasonable amount of speed. But now when you do this, you don't lose that speed, which means you can zoom through the track. This takes the fast-paced action up a notch. Like true Mario Party 1 fashion, Bash and Cash is an unnecessarily toxic minigame. The very unlucky solo player has to avoid getting hammered by the other players. If they do get hit, they drop their actual in-game coins and the other players can collect them, and there is no limit to how many coins they can lose. You put everything on the line while everyone else gets to profit off your misery. I'm all for some toxic fun, but this is just straight up bullying. In Jamboree's Squeaky Shakedown, the roles are reversed and the solo player gets to have their revenge. The 3 have money bags and have to avoid the solo player from stealing them with their hammer. This obviously has to be the winner because each of the 3 players are given a set amount of coins in the beginning of the minigame instead of using their own. Yeah, the solo player will most likely walk away with the most coins, but at least no one's going bankrupt. Another 1v3 minigame is Bowl Over, where the solo player has to knock down the 3 players who are dressed up as pins. In one, you get one roll and there's not really any way to lose. You can hit other players and steal their coins, or you can hit the regular pins and get coins for hitting them. It kinda sucks because there's no way for the 3 players to win, just lose coins. But in 2, the objective changes, so now the solo player has to knock down all 3 players in order to win. If they fail, the 3 players win. The solo player does get an extra roll to do this, but it's still a pretty balanced minigame that allows both sides a chance to win. 1's crane game is pretty much in the same boat. The solo player has one move. They can either spam A to collect treasure filled with coins, or they can try to yoink another player and steal their coins, but they can escape if they spam A faster. There again is no opportunity for the 3 players to win. But in 2, the solo player has to collect all 3 players in order to win. If they're running low on time, they can pick up some extra time scattered around. If there was any way for the 3 players to win in the original, I'd declare it the victor because spamming A for that long in 2's version, especially when you have to do it multiple times for one opponent, will give you the nastiest hand cramp you will ever experience. Piranha's Pursuit. I hate this minigame. The solo player has to fight for their freaking lives, spamming B to skateboard while pressing A to jump over obstacles, while the 3 players are lounging in a cloud, ground pounding to water a deadly piranha. I wouldn't have such a problem with it if it didn't last so freaking long. Halfway through, I can't feel my fingers anymore. Did they make it shorter in top 100s? Nope. What about Superstars? Also no. The only reason I like Superstars more is because the vines that you can swing on are a lot more clear than the other versions, which I didn't know was a thing until I played Superstars. Tug of War is a bit of an unfair 1v3 minigame because 9 times out of 10, the solo player will win. That can also be said in top 100's version as well, but in Super Mario Party's Pull It Together, there's a little more variability of which side will win. It's a 2v2 minigame that includes allies, and yeah, the team with the most allies have a better chance of winning, but they're not guaranteed victory, so I enjoyed this version the most. In Superstars, it feels like they give a little more oomph to the 3-player team, but I still enjoy Super Mario Party's version a little more. Shell Game is your classic shuffle and watch minigame where one player has to find the Koopa holding all the coins. As long as you have 2 functioning eyes, it's pretty hard to lose though. Advance's Watch 'em is very similar, but you're awarded with actual coins you can spend on the game's collectibles. It can be very tough in the final 2 rounds, but if you just bet the max coins and play up to the 3rd round, you're pretty much always guaranteed a win. But my favorite iteration is Jamboree's Slide of Shell. It's a 20-player minigame, which is already insane, and players have to pick the correct chest. If they choose wrong, they are eliminated and are sent backwards in the Koopathon board section. It's fun, simple, and paying attention to the correct chest actually offers a bit of a challenge. Bobsled Run is a 2v2 minigame where 2 players have to work together to navigate an icy track and reach the end before the other team. One's is a bit choppy and the controls do feel a bit stiff, but in Superstars, it feels like a completely new and improved minigame. The controls feel much smoother and more responsive, and the track looks incredible. But there is one reason I decided to give the win to 2. I got 2 words: penguin, butthole. Need I say any more? Desert Dash is another 2v2 minigame that requires both teammates to flip the joystick at the same time to move their skis and reach the end, unless you're on a team with an AI, which will just match your exact moves. It's pretty broken, to be honest. It's an effective minigame, just kinda boring if you ask me. 2's is slightly better because there's an added obstacle you need to avoid, and the environment feels a bit more ominous. My favorite version though is 9's Mecha March. You and a teammate have to work together to simultaneously flick the Wii Remote to move each leg and catch up to Bowser Jr. in time. It makes a lot more sense this way too, because you have to actually rely on your AI teammate instead of them just matching your exact movements. And you really need to be on your A game to catch up to Bowser Jr., which is a fun challenge. Top 100 brought back the original, but it still has the same issues I had with it before. Ski-Daddle though, and Jamboree is a bit different because now you have 7 other teammates working with you, and each individual player has to press the buttons in tune with the beat in order to beat the Wriggler in a race. It's a bit more innovative than 1 and 2's, but it's still a bit easy if you have AI teammates. And the final minigame that originated in Mario Party 1 is Hand Car Havoc. Both players have to spam A to propel their hand car to the finish line before the other team, and they must turn into the corners in order to maintain their speed. I thought I'd like 2's version more than 1's because I grew up on it, and though 2's does feel a lot faster, I love the fiery cave look of 1's a lot. The same can be said of Top 100s and Superstars because Top 100 brought back 2's while Superstars brought back 1's. I mean, look at the difference. How can Superstars version not be the winner here? Now we move on to Mario Party 2, where the minigames actually make sense. Besides 8, this is my most played Mario Party, and for good reason. The minigames and boards are incredibly fun. Starting off, we have Shell Shocked. 4 goofy-looking player tanks must battle it out to be the last alive. Like the other Mario Party 2 minigames, there are 3 different unique areas to play on, which all offer different styles of play. The controls can be a bit slow, which just means you need to be super accurate. Cannonball Fun in 6 is a point system instead of a survival minigame, which I don't like nearly as much because players can just sit back like cowards and farm points. And the controls for this game are super funky. 8 Scooter Pursuit is even more cowardly because there's no obstacles in the way, so you can literally just sit in a corner. Island Tours Tanks a Lot is nice because once you get hit, you respawn somewhere else, which is cool so you can't get obliterated over and over again. But the course is way too big and it's still a point system. I do like how fast the tanks are though. In Top 100, there's only the 1 course, so there's no variability. It is nice you get the separate screen just for yourself, but if you're on the 3DS, is the screen any bigger than playing on the TV? Super Mario Party switched it up a bit with Shell Shocked Deluxe. Instead of being a third-person 4-player minigame, it is now a top-down dual minigame. It can be pretty fun, but because it's an extra minigame that can't be played in the standard mode and it's time-based, there's not much on the line, so it's not nearly as entertaining. But the best version again has to be Superstars. They brought back the multiple courses and it feels a lot faster, which can take some time to get used to if you played a lot of the original, but it's a good change overall. The next minigame is Toad in the Box, where you have to successfully roll Toad 5 times. You can time it towards the end if you have godlike reflexes, but odds are you'll have to get a bit lucky. In 10's Dice and Dash, you want to get each of the 3 symbols to escape while avoiding Bowser spaces. The dice block is a lot slower, but getting Bowser resets all your progress, so you can't just win by pressing A randomly, which I like a lot better. Deep Sea Salvage is a coin minigame where player submarines must navigate obstacles and collect as many coins as possible. It's a fun, simple minigame, but you definitely just want to hug the top and not even worry about diving below. Steel Diver in Star Rush also has you diving for coins in a submarine, but now it's a single-player coin rush minigame. The obstacles are pretty easy to avoid, and without any other players, it gets pretty boring fast, so I'll give the win to the original. Lava Tile Isle is your classic moving platform boxing game where players have to be the last one to survive. It may look easy, but your character doesn't move with the platform, which can really psych you out. Vista Clouds and Island Tour I'd say looks better, and the entire platform moves as a whole, but it doesn't really make it all that harder, especially now that you move with the platforms. 10's Platform Push though is the perfect brawling minigame though, in my opinion. Every couple of seconds the platform will get smaller and smaller, making the fight more intense. And if you get knocked out, there's still a chance you can jump back up. It may not be as complex as constantly moving platforms, but sometimes simpler is better. Mecha Marathon has you spamming A and B to wind up the Shy Guy toy to make it farther than all the other players. It's nothing too crazy, and for some reason it's always been difficult for me to spam those two buttons at once. But my favorite version, Island Tour's Cannonball, has you spinning the joystick instead, which feels a lot better. And sending yourself flying through the air, moving across this small planet looks a lot more appealing. Top 100 and Superstars brought back the original, and though they do look better, it's not enough to beat Island Tours. Roll Call is a style of minigames I absolutely enjoy. All you have to do is count as many characters there are. The best thing about this minigame is the different gimmick for each unique character. Toad's stage has similar looking mushrooms planted in the ground to throw you off. Bomb-ombs are constantly exploding, forcing you to change your answer, and boos are hard to count because they're always disappearing and reappearing. It keeps the game nice and fresh. Though this minigame will always have a special place in my heart, 9's Goomba spotting is the clear winner. I don't know what it is, but using your Wii Remote as a counter to tally how many Goombas you see is so fun and satisfying. And the opponents can't copy your answer, which is a problem I had with the original. Top 100 recycled the original, but there's only the Bomb-omb stage. I was super close to picking Super Mario Party Senseless Senses as the winner because the chaoticness of having to run back and forth, counting toads while they're also running all over the place, can be really fun. But my OCD isn't as fulfilled playing this game compared to 9's. Superstars decided to bring the OG back one more time, and thank God they brought back the other stages. But, and I don't know if it's because the game looks so much clearer now, but counting the characters felt a lot easier. Everyone just seemed a lot more spread out, which allows more than one player to win. Totem Pole Pound is a simple game where players have to ground pound their totem pole quicker than everyone else. The higher you jump, the more totem pole you'll cover, which means the minigame will have the same outcome every time because it's easy to tell when you need to ground pound. 4's Great Deflate though has you working with a teammate to deflate this Thwomp inflatable. Because you and your teammate have to work together to simultaneously ground pound, which releases the most air, it makes each time you play the minigame different. The only reason I'm saying Top 100's version is better is because the inflatable looks a lot better when it's close to being fully deflated. Honeycomb Havoc is a long and grueling minigame where players have to roll a 1 or a 2 to avoid receiving a bee's nest, which will eliminate you. Superstars and Top 100s are pretty much identical to each other, but that doesn't matter because I'm giving the win to the original. Because this minigame can feel like an eternity compared to the others, it was nice in 2's version that if you wanted to roll the number the previous player rolled, you can just spam A and quickly hit the dice, which you can't do in the future versions. I know it's an incredibly small detail, but it's hard to decide when there's 3 of the same exact minigame. Sneak and Snore is kind of infuriating because you have to guess when the Chain Chomp is about to wake up and hide back into your barrel before he snatches you up and eliminates you. If you can survive long enough to press the button and escape first, you win. I do like Superstars more though because watching the AI, it seems like you can time when to hide from the Chain Chomp, which I could not get down. But mark my words, one day I will. Dizzy Dancing is one of the rare minigames that made a significant change to the original. In the first version, you had to collect the one music note above the spinning record. The kicker is that all your controls are swapped. But even with that, it can be really easy to get down, so the minigame almost always goes by super quick. But they changed that in Top 100 and Superstars because now it's a point system where you have to try to collect as many music notes as possible. Superstars is my favorite version because it looks better, but I wish they made the objective harder, like making the record spin faster or something, but I'll take what I can get. Move to the Music is a 1v3 memory game where the solo player conducts music by pressing buttons, and the team has to work together to remember those buttons and press them with the right timing. I love the concept, but it can be pretty easy for the team to win because the notes are spread out across all 3 players, and one player can just carry the whole team. I'm gonna be honest though, I hate 3's The Beat Goes On. You have to again memorize the buttons in this free-for-all minigame, with a new button being added after every turn. If I didn't already despise how much of an advantage the final player gets, how the hell am I supposed to compete with AIs who are memorizing this? Yeah, in my dreams. Steal the Beat is another 1v3 music minigame, except they took out the memorizing element of it, which I'm perfectly okay with. This is my favorite version because of how balanced it is for both sides. The solo player can go stupid on the sticks and make it difficult for the team to replay their beat, but it's still very possible. And now the team shares the amount of mistakes they can make, so one player can't completely carry. And Top 100 brought back 3's, which you already know how I feel about it. Look Away will never get old, and it's been brought back many times in many forms. The solo player has to eliminate the team by looking in the same direction they do. The OG version is, well, a classic. You can't go wrong with it. 5's fight cards is very similar, with the solo player trying to eliminate the 3 by trying to guess which symbol they picked. It's still fun, but I miss trying to psych out other players like in the original. Don't Look in 9 takes Look Away and turns it into a 4-player minigame where all players have to look in the direction that arrows aren't pointing. It gets very fun in the later rounds with 3 arrows because you have to think really fast. There's actually no con to this minigame in my opinion, it just doesn't beat the number 1 spot. Top 100 brought back the same minigame again, with the only difference being that the controls to look are with the joystick rather than the Wii's motion controls, which just comes down to personal preference. Super Mario Party's Looking for Love, on the other hand, is the opposite of that minigame. The players are trying to look in the direction of the heart. It sounds simple, but with the rounds being lightning quick and the heart changing colors and positions, it can really trick your mind, which is honestly a blast. But when making the tough decision out of all these amazing games, I couldn't find one I'd rather play than Superstar's remaster of Look Away, the original. It's exactly the same as 2's, just a lot better looking. I tried not to let nostalgia influence my decisions in this entire video, but I can't help it in this case. The 1v3 element with 3 of your friends will always be a fun, chaotic time that cannot be topped by any other version. It may not be as balanced as the others, but when a minigame's entertainment level is this high, you don't even really care. The final version is Jamboree's Look This Way. Similar to Super Mario Party's, all 8 players have to look in the direction of the arrow. It's still a good minigame, but it's better when the players are competing against each other, which they're not here, and it can be a bit easy. Shock Drop or Roll is a rough one. One player pushes a lever back and forth that controls the spinning platform that the 3 players have to try to stay on. The amount of tech you have to stay on this thing is crazy. The AIs will absolutely bamboozle you, and you'll be eliminated before you know it. And worst of all, when it's your turn to be the solo player, of course, they pass the controller to their older brother and now they're movement gods. DS's version, however, the best, doesn't have these crazy mechanics you have to master, just requires you to have a fast reaction time. And using the DS's touchscreen to spin the giant piece of meat, which is another reason why I love this minigame so much, is a perfect implementation. Bowser's Wicked Wheel in 10 is a Bowser minigame where the player on the Wii U gamepad has to spin the wheel and try to stop it to get the other players to run into the electricity. I love the Bowser minigames, but out of all of them, this is probably the easiest, as long as you stop running when Bowser stops the wheel. Lights Out is kind of a terrifying minigame where the solo player has to hunt down and smash the other players in the dark. Oh, and sorry it looks like this, my game was bugged. 4's Candlelight Fight is the opposite of that, with the 3 players trying to extinguish the solo player's candle. It would be a good minigame, but actually hitting the candle is so janky for some reason. You have to be incredibly precise, which is difficult when the solo player is juking you out of your socks. If you ever played Mario Party 2, you've probably gotten infuriated by 2's archer rival, and for good reason. The solo player has to shoot down the team, who are cardboard cutouts moving side to side. But bro, the stupid non-character cutouts are determined to box you in and make you the easiest target to hit. And if you have AI teammates, buddy, you're screwed. But even though it's super frustrating, it's still an incredibly fun minigame. Superstars is the same thing, except with a better look. But the heavily inspired arch-rival minigame in Jamboree flips the script. Now, the solo player is moving side to side and has to accurately shoot the targets while the team has to move those targets and avoid the arrows. It's a fun, unique twist, the motion controls work perfectly, and best of all, no one can get in your way, giving the team more control over the outcome. Sky Pilots is an underrated 2v2 minigame where one player has to flap the wings and project the vehicle forward while the other steers. There are boosts you can fly through, cannonballs constantly locking onto you, and explosive balloons in the middle of the path. The reason I like Superstars version so much more is because in the original, you couldn't steer while boosting. Because of this, the team on the right would have a default advantage because they could enter the boost at a better angle and be more lined up with the path, where the other team would be facing the wall. In Superstars, however, you can steer just enough to reposition your vehicle while boosting, making it more fair. Originating in 2, Speed Hockey has been brought back 2 other times in Top 100 and Superstars with virtually no changes. The only thing I noticed is that Top 100 shell might have taken a tiny bit longer to pick up speed than the others, but I could be tripping. Oh, and the shell is green in Superstars. But because it looks the best in Superstars, I'll give it the win. Man, I sure am hungry. I could go for a piece of cake from the cake factory. No? Okay. Again, this was brought back in Top 100 in Superstars with minor changes. One player has to grab a cake and place it down, while their teammate grabs a strawberry and places it on top. In the original, you pressed A to pick up your item and released A to drop it, while in the other versions, you press A to pick up and then A again to drop. I guess if you're going for the Cake Factory world record, you could say that the old controls were slightly faster, but most of us don't really care that much. But in the Superstars and Top 100 version, you pretty much instantly pick up an item when you press A directly on it, whereas in the OG, you had to kind of press A before the item arrived in order to get it, so the newer versions are faster anyways. But Superstars is the clear winner here because of the visual upgrade. Looney Lumberjacks is another BS 2v2 minigame where if you have an AI teammate, you're pretty much guaranteed to win. You're supposed to work with your teammate to cut the log by pressing A and B back and forth with good timing, but because it's an AI, they'll always match your speed. I don't know why they brought it back to Top 100 where you're even more likely to be playing alone because it's on the 3DS, but I'll still give it the win because it looks better. But surprisingly in Bumper Balloon Car's case, I actually prefer the original over Superstars. The controls in the OG were so freaking quick and responsive, it made every match a chaotic brawl. But now in Superstars, it controls how you would expect it to, which isn't as fun in my opinion. Day at the Races is one of those completely luck-based minigames, at least that's what most of us believe. You pick one of the 4 characters and then they race to the finish line. You do nothing but watch. In 5's Random Ride, it's the exact same case. The problem I have with 5's is that the names of the vehicles actually reflects their chances of winning. So obviously, the first player to pick is going to pick the vehicle with the best chance, while the last player will get stuck with the worst odds. Yeah, it's definitely not guaranteed, but still, what a bullcrap minigame. Now after doing some research, technically in 2's you can tell who's gonna win by watching the character's idle animation speed and not picking Thwomp because he has the lowest overall chances of winning. But most casual Mario Party players aren't gonna know this, so they're just gonna pick who they want and blame it on luck if they lose. The last player to pick was never too upset because they believed they had an equal chance of winning. All this goes away in 5 though. Ignorance is bliss. The next minigame is the second largest reoccurring minigame style in all of Mario Party, right behind Bumper Balls, completely luck-based elimination. Players pick from a number of options, and if they're wrong, they're out. The first and probably most well-known minigame is Bowser's Big Blast. If you choose wrong, a countdown will start in Bowser's eyes, and you get blown to Kingdom Come. Nothing comes closer to giving me a heart attack than hearing that music stop and just waiting for what's about to happen next. 4 brought it back with Bowser's Bigger Blast, and they weren't lying. This explosion is insane. Did Nintendo put all their resources into just this minigame? 8's You're the Bomb is a dual minigame where the objective is to blow up your teammate's bomb. It feels a little more intimate and intense, and I like the animation that shows you how far your chosen fuse travels. 8 also had a 4-player version called Cut from the Team. It's a bit annoying that you have to use the Wii sensor to pick a line to cut because I've had so much trouble in the past getting it to work right. But I don't know if it's the tism in me, but cutting a rope sounds and feels so satisfying. DS's Cheep Cheep Chance makes you think you can trace the rope down and pull up a fish, which is what you want, but it's all an illusion. But because there's a finite amount of fish to pull, multiple people can win at this one, which I don't know how to feel about. 9's Peer Pressure is the same thing, except now there's no illusion at the bottom of your screen, and you can pull up a spiky sea urchin to eliminate yourself, instead of nothing. It's nothing too special if you ask me. Top 100's version of 2's is exactly the same with no differences as far as I could tell. They also brought back the inferior Mario Party 9 version, which again, has no difference. The final and best minigame out of all these is Superstars Remaster of the OG. Come on people, it's popular for a reason. 1, the explosion looks amazing, and I love the little electricity effect before Bowser explodes. But my favorite change is that it takes a lot longer before you get to know if you blow up or not. Once you pull that lever, you have to sit there and wait a good amount of time compared to the others to find out if you picked wrong, which is so suspenseful. There's a couple of dual minigames in 2 that can only be activated and played in the board section that later inspired other minigames. The first is Quick Draw Quirks, where players are in an old western duel and must press A to shoot their opponent when Goomba says go. I love the look and feel of it, but the controls don't exactly feel very responsive. 5 Shy Guy Showdown is very similar, except it's a regular minigame, and it's my favorite. You have to again shoot as soon as Goomba gives the signal, except you have to press the right button. and he can fake you out with buttons not on your controller. If you wrongly shoot, you lose. This makes you second guess everything, which is fun. Mild Gunman and Island Tour test how fast each player can press the right button. Because it's a 4-player game and players aren't shooting at each other though, it's not nearly as intense. Top 100 brought back 5s, but you might as well play it on the GameCube. It doesn't really look better on the 3DS. Time Bomb is another one of these special minigames where a certain time is given to the players, and they must press A to stop the timer. Whoever's closest to the given time wins. 5's Countdown Pound is a similar duel minigame, except you can see the timer this time, and you have to ground pound as close to 0 as possible without hitting 0. I love trying to fake out my opponent to get them to ground pound first, and the annoying smoke that tries to overstimulate you. Lunatics in 6 is even more fun because now you have to slow your fall to the platform in order to land closest to 0 seconds. Trying to find the perfect balance of not falling too fast where you land too early and too slow where you land too late is a blast. Clock Watchers in 7 is probably the only mic minigame on this list that I can call the winner because it doesn't require you to be clear on what you say, as long as you make a noise in the mic to make the clock stop at the right time. And all 4 players can participate instead of being a dual minigame like the other ones. I also love that each player is given a different time, so everyone's turn is different. Quicksand Cache is the final minigame that originated in Mario Party 2 that we'll talk about, and it's another rare case where I prefer the original over the Superstars remaster. It's a 1v3 coin collecting minigame where the solo player in the center controls the direction of the sand in order to make the 3 players running around miss the coins, allowing them to scoop them up. The original makes more sense, at least to me, because there's no level of teamwork used between the 3 players. It's kind of them just running around collecting coins. So it makes sense that in 2s, the individual coins you collect goes to you and you alone, whereas in Superstars, the coins you collect as a team are tallied together. So if one player does absolutely nothing, they can cash in on the other's hard work, which is kinda shady if you ask me. Mario Party 3 is the final N64 Mario Party, and it has one of the coolest looking art styles out of all the Mario parties. The first minigame is Ice Rink Risk that has players hopping over spiked shells while trying to keep their balance on an icy platform. It's nothing too crazy, and if you just sit in a corner and jump when a shell approaches you, you have a much better chance of winning. 6 Pit Boss is very similar, but now it's a Bowser minigame, so the objective isn't to win, but just not to lose. And now you can't jump, so your only option is to weave in between gaps, which is kinda challenging and fun. Top 100 and Superstars brought back the original with smoother controls and better graphics. In Superstars, the shells seem to move faster, but it still feels kinda easy if you stick to one corner. The AIs will just eliminate themselves. Superstars then again brought back Pit Boss, which is my favorite version. The balls do seem faster, which makes it more intense, and now it's set up like a traditional minigame where the last player left is the winner. Parasol Plummet is a coin minigame where players have to open and close their umbrella to collect coins while avoiding falling hammers. Superstars brought it back with smoother controls and a better look, but also no changes, so I'll give it the win. Messy Memory. Players have to remember where each item went, and the player with the most correct item wins. Again, there were no changes in Superstars besides the visual upgrades, so yeah. In Snowball Summit, you have to make a snowball and push the opponents off the platform with it by rolling it into them. The bigger the snowball, the farther they'll launch. 5's dual minigame, Blown Away, is kinda similar, but instead of making big snowballs, you want to make a big gust of air. This one's kind of boring and frustrating because once you hit your opponent, they're invincible for like a second, so both players just go back and forth trying to knock each other off with no progress made. Top 100 brought back Snowball Summit, with the only change I noticed being that you can no longer block a larger snowball with a smaller one, which you could in the original. I kinda liked the defensive element. Super Mario Party Soak or Croak has to be the best. You use the Joy-Con motion controls to fill your squirt gun and blast everyone off. I love the surrounding scenery, the movement is nice and quick so you can try to juke your opponents, and the knockback is high so the minigame isn't long and drawn out. The decision of whether or not to stop and refill, putting yourself at risk, or continue moving is a risk that makes it so much more intense. Lastly, Superstars also brought back Snowball Summit, which is the best out of the 3 because I love the added detail of the lines in the snow when you're rolling your snowball. I kinda hate Toadstool Titan. The players have to hit blocks and search for the mushroom that'll make them big. Once they are big, they have 3 tries to hunt down the other players. No matter if I find that mushroom or not, 90% of the time I cannot beat them to that mushroom. But it doesn't even matter that much because it's super easy to evade them. Another minigame where one player has to hunt down the 3 others is 4's Hop or Pop. I really like the mechanics, but it's pretty easy against AIs on either side. 5's Flatulator is a better version of that in my opinion because the controls are faster and smoother, and the AIs are super slippery, and these stupid Monty moles love getting in the way. 8's Power Trip is again super easy against AIs. The solo player is in this weird spacecraft thingy and has to hit the other 3 while they avoid the gaps in the floor. Because the thing is difficult to turn, you can just keep jumping in circles to avoid them. Ruin's Rumble is my favorite because the maneuverability of both sides is super fun when you're dodging in and out of this maze. It may seem easy for the solo player, but they have to hit all 3 players and the dry bones in order to win, so it's pretty balanced. Top 100 and Superstars brought back the original with much better controls, and the mushroom is a Mega Mushroom, which makes more sense. Good improvements, but not enough to change my vote. Bounce and Trounce is a minigame where players have to jump and spin on their balls, pause, to knock players off the constantly changing platform. The higher your jump, the more knockback you'll have in your hit, but you'll also be more at risk. I love how intense it gets when there's just a few squares left. I couldn't really see any differences in Top 100's version besides a better look, but in Superstars, it feels like it can go a little higher, and you have to be a lot more precise when you press A in order to bounce, which raises the skill gap. Because of that, this is the winner. Chip Shot Challenge is a fun but annoying minigame. You have to try to hit the ball as close to the hole as possible, or ideally, inside of it. The player closest, or players who got a hole in one, win. It's frustrating though because the last player to hit will always have the advantage because they can judge the power and position of everyone else's hit and get a perfect swing. But at least the mechanics make sense, which I can't say for the other 2 versions. In Top 100, for one, the ball will stop on a dime, even if it lands on a hill. But I get it, it's not a super detailed golf game like Mario Golf, so I can look past it. But in the original, if you aim the arrows near the flag with the right power, you'd get close to the hole. But now, I don't even know where the hell to aim. Like, how on God's green earth does this shot from Daisy end up all the way over here? It makes no sense. They fixed the issue a little bit in Superstars, but now if you do the same exact shot as the opponent before you, I swear to God, your ball will end up somewhere completely different. Because of all this buffoonery, I'm giving the win to the original. Playing these 3 games back to back gave me the worst headache. Mario's Puzzle Party is pretty much a simpler, lamer Tetris where you compete against 4 other players to connect 2 same colored squares together until you hit a certain score. Hitting combos will give you more points, you can use thwomps to smush down blocks, and these stupid regular Mario blocks that I have no idea what causes them to spawn will get in your way. I'm pretty sure I suck at this game, but because you only need to connect 2 color squares together and there aren't that many colors to begin with, if you just slam down your blocks randomly and as quickly as possible, you'll win like 70% of the time. Advance's Koopa Crunch is done much better. Instead of having to connect 2 of the same colored blocks, you have to connect 3, so slamming down blocks as quickly as possible won't work nearly as well. And you can actually move the blocks from vertical to horizontal, which you couldn't do in the original. The best part about Advance's version are these green shells. You can't get rid of them normally, but if you stack them in a pile, you can use a red shell to satisfyingly get rid of every single one. This means that you have to be constantly strategic in order to place them where they're all touching. The game isn't 4-player, but it's still my favorite version. The DS version is the same as 3's, but now it's single player only, which gets pretty boring fast. And Superstars is the exact same version as 3's, but with a better look. Hyper Hydrants is a 2v2 minigame where one player pumps water into the hose while the other aims the hose and tries to extinguish more fires than the other team. As far as 2v2 minigames go, it's a pretty solid one. However, in Jamboree's Chomp Wash, 8 players all work together on one team. One player controls the hose and tries to wash all the paint off the chain chomp, but instead of pumping water, all the other players have to fix the leaks in the pipe. The incredible use of teamwork and fun division of tasks obviously makes this version the better choice. Waterworld is another form of minigames that has been brought back many different times. The objective is pretty much the same for each, finish a certain amount of laps first. The original is pretty basic, with the course being just a circle and the controls are a bit stiff. Nintendo stepped it up pretty heavy with 5's Later Skater, where players are ice skating, and the movement feels much faster and needing more skill. Advance's Sled Slide has you instead on a sled, but without any other players, it gets kinda boring, which is a shame because it would have probably been super fun against some opponents. 7's Cartwheel, though, is exactly what I'm looking for in a racing minigame. A unique course, insanely fast movement, controls that take skill, and if you want to get toxic and body block other players, it's super easy to do so. It's perfect. Snow Goin' 9 is a very close second, however. Yeah, the course is again a circle, but for some reason the controls are super satisfying and smooth. And on top of the quick movement, trying to perfectly hit this jump every lap is a fun and rewarding challenge. No traction action in Island Tour looks amazing, mainly due to the camera being behind your shoulder, getting a nice third-person view. The controls can be really tough to master, so the game isn't as satisfying, but once you do, those drifts will make you want to go straight to Tokyo. Top 100 brought back 5's Later Skater, but now the camera is only focused on you. This is really nice in some minigames, but this is one where I prefer to be able to see where the other players are. Superstars also brought it back, but this time kept everything the same, except with a better look. Frigid Bridges is a surprisingly fun and challenging minigame where players have to race back and forth carrying ice blocks on an icy and narrow path in order to make a bridge. This is one of those minigames that no matter how many times you play it, it doesn't get easier, which keeps me looking forward to it every time. Seven's Unhappy Trails is an 8-player minigame where players again have to go back and forth, except this time with a teammate. It's pretty basic and kinda easy because the paths aren't narrow enough and there aren't any obstacles. But if you thought that was easy, Super Mario Party's Isthmus Be the Way is on another level. I don't think I'm saying that word right. All 4 players have to work together to get the firework into the cannon, but the paths are way too wide and not windy enough. I have yet to see anyone fall off. Because the 2 are too easy for my liking, I'ma have to go with the original. Once again, 3 started a whole movement with its awful tower. You have to climb the tower as quickly as possible while avoiding obstacles. I like this minigame, but these cracked out hammer bros are in fact awful. They will always throw their hammer right as you're about to jump, making you stuck in a perpetual loop of anger. 5's Leap Leap is a hood classic. I'm guessing because of how simple and fun it is. You basically just jump left or right and climb high, but it never gets old because you just need to see if you can beat your record. 6's What Goes Up isn't as simple though and requires a lot more technique to be good at. Instead of platforms, there's these small Koopa Troopas you have to jump on but also avoid hitting, which can cause a lot of the very casual players to just give up halfway through. Upward mobility in 9 is a bit simpler with these bouncy blocks, but I can see multiple real players finishing at almost the same time because the path is the exact same and it's not difficult bouncing on blocks if you played any Mario game ever. Leaf Leap in Top 100 is kinda disappointing because something in the game doesn't allow you to move as fast as you can, which makes setting high scores and beating opponents much harder. But don't worry, because the best version is Superstars, where it looks the best it ever has and you can go as fast as you want. Like I said before, sometimes simpler is better. Superstars also brought back What Goes Up, which feels smoother than the first version, but it still can't top the king. And lastly, they brought back Leaf Leap once again in Jamboree's Mario 3-peat. Unfortunately, the background doesn't change at all the higher you go, which I guess is to add more suspense when they reveal the winner, but it's just not as interesting to look at. And now there's 5 players on the screen with Mario taking up the middle space. Like, dude, I get it, it's your game, but you don't have to participate in everything. Rockin' Raceway, where players have to race to the finish line on a horse, trying to grab ripe carrots to boost their speed, is a bit of a bust for me. It's just kinda boring. They brought it back in Top 100 with the only change being that the camera is only focused on you, and also Superstars where it looks better, so I guess I'll give it the win. In Coconut Conk, 3 players have to ground pound palm trees in an attempt to drop coconuts on the solo player who's rolling around in a barrel. Superstars brought this back with a much better look and smoother controls. Spotlight Swim is another 1v3 minigame where 1 player has to swim around and dive underwater, and the 3 have to get their spotlights on them at the same time. This version's a bit frustrating because the AIs don't really know what they're doing on either side, even on hard difficulty. 7's Flash or Fright is kinda similar, but now the solo player has to flash their light on the team. It's pretty much flashlight tag. It's a great idea, but if all 3 players just go in circles around these statues, they're for sure guaranteed to win. Superstars then brought back Spotlight Swim again, but this time the AIs actually have some brain cells, so it's just a lot more enjoyable. Boulder Ball has 1 player dropping boulders on the 3 players while they try to reach the top. Super fun minigame, but it's way too easy for the team to win. 9's Block and Roll is kind of the opposite, where the 3 players are trying to hit the solo player before they can carry 3 blocks back and forth. This time it's a bit too easy for the solo player because the boulders are way too slow and predictable and there's too much time on the clock. But Superstars remaster of Boulder Ball is the perfect balance. Sorry, I know I'm starting to sound like Goldilocks here. For one, the boulders are bigger and drop quicker, so it's easier to hit your opponents and it's not the end of the world if you make a mistake. Also, if you double back down to avoid getting squashed, you lose a lot more ground, so it's much more of a risk to take. And can I just say, this has got to be the best looking visual upgrade in a minigame. It is unnecessarily detailed. Hide and Seek is a 1v3 guessing game where the solo player has to find the team. It can be fun against AIs, but if you're playing with 3 other real players and there are 2 players left on the final turn, they can just tell each other to pick different hiding spots and win, kinda defeating the purpose of the minigame. 4's Hide and Go Boom is a lot better though, because once players lock in their hiding spot, they cannot change after every guess, so they can't conspire. The solo player still has 3 guesses though. Top 100 thankfully brought back 4's version with no changes, but Superstars brought back 3's, which still has the same issue. But the best version is Jamboree's Lost and Pound. This time the team has to try to find the solo player, who has 4 places to choose from after every round. It may seem unbalanced at first, but the solo player has 3 lives and can choose the same spot as many times as they want. If they can survive 3 rounds, then they win. This one is actually more fun with real players too, because if the solo player still has 3 lives by round 2 or 3, the team can try to coordinate their efforts and target the same spot to double up their firepower, or even triple it if it's the final round. It's a super fun minigame. River Raiders is a 1v3 coin minigame. One player drives a boat up front collecting coins, while the other 3 try to collect the scraps. If this sounds like some bullcrap, it's because it is. If the person driving the boat has just 1 brain cell, they're gonna collect most of the coins, and there's very little wiggle room for the team to spread out, so the solo player can just bully the team away from all the coins. But luckily, the AIs are brain dead. 8's Water Ski Spree is a lot more fair though, because it's a 4-player minigame where each person is doing their own thing. Yeah, the obstacles may be easy to avoid, but it's always a blast testing your reaction skills with trying to pick the ramp with the coin instead of nothing. Superstars brought back 3's, but now the AIs are much smarter, so now it's even worse. Title Toss has 1 player making waves in a boat trying to knock the 3 players out. It's a pretty easy game for the team to win because they can just match the solo player's jumps and avoid all the waves. You can do quick jumps to make smaller, more unpredictable waves, but they don't have much knockback at all, and they can give your opponents invincibility frames so they can just walk through the bigger ones. 4's Making Waves is a more balanced game that takes a lot more teamwork to win. Instead of the solo player making waves, the team is. At first glance, it may seem pretty hard to knock the solo player over, but by working with your teammates to move into better positions and timing your ground pounds, victory can become yours, just like this minigame. Top 100's Title Toss is probably the best version of the minigame. The waves are smaller, but the solo player can make them much faster and the team can jump faster, which makes it easier for both sides, but also harder so it weeds out the weaklings. Superstars version is the same thing with stunning new graphics. But holy crap, what does it take to knock someone out? I should have been eliminated here at least 3 times. Speaking of unbalanced minigames, Thwomp Pull has 1 player pressing buttons pulling their thwomp while the team does the same. The thing that makes it unbalanced is that the team are assigned a specific button to press and they appear in the exact same spot. So when their button pops up, they know exactly which one to press and they do it very quickly. The solo player has to remember where each button appears and then press it. It's a reaction game for the team, but a reaction and memory game for the solo player. In my experience though, 9's Weird Wheels is a lot more fair. The solo player has a combination of buttons they need to press alone, while the team has less of a combination but must work together. It kinda reminds me of 4's Fish and Drips, a game infamous for being more favorable towards the solo player because the team can't see the buttons they're pressing ahead of time, so they have to have the craziest reaction time to win. But here they can see ahead of time, so it's much more fair. I found it very winnable on both sides. Eat's a Pizza is a simple 2v2 minigame where both teams have to spam A to eat more pizza than the other. It's super fun trying to see if you can eat the whole pizza before the time runs out. The game has remained virtually unchanged in both Top 100 and Superstars, I'm guessing because it's so simple and there was nothing wrong with the original. So I'll go with Superstars because of the visual upgrade. In Puddle Paddle, each team has to work together to row their raft and collect coins while avoiding hammers. Superstars brought it back, and obviously I enjoy how this one looks a lot more. I'm looking at you, crackhead. But the coin distribution is all out of whack. Like, look at this. 2 money bags given right to us. I don't know if DK slipped Hammer Bro a 5 or something, but the other team was getting screwed. Picking Panic is one of my favorite minigames in 3, if I have a real teammate. One person is supposed to pick up and throw the fruit while their teammate catches the fruit and places it in the basket. But if you have an AI teammate, What the hell are they aiming at? My blind grandmother can throw better than that. Thankfully, in Superstars, the AIs are a lot more capable, so obviously this is the better version. Continuing with infuriating AIs, Etch and Catch is a game where you and a teammate have to work together to create a circle around Toad and catch him. The strat is for each teammate to go in opposite directions and meet up, creating a quick and easy circle. But for some godforsaken reason, the AI loves to go in the same direction as you. And because your line disappears after a little bit, we're both just going in circles the entire game. Similar to that, and much better, is 9's 1v3 minigame Line in the Sand. One player uses the Wii Remote's cursor controls to create circles to try to trap the 3 players. It's a little more one-sided toward the solo player because you can make these circles pretty big and fast, but the concept and mechanics are so cool and unique, I don't even care. Etch and Catch made its return in Superstars, and somehow the AI got worse. Of course, I got the biggest, bulkiest character in the game as my teammate, but he literally went out of his way to go in the same direction as me, even when I turned around. My blood pressure is through the roof because of this minigame. Three Door Monty is a game where players have to pay attention to where each character goes and then answer Toad's question the fastest time possible. It's fun, but good luck beating hard AIs. I mean, how am I supposed to beat 0.16 seconds? My brain can't even comprehend that. Top 100 replaced Boo with Goomba, which fits a lot more with the other characters, and you actually have a chance against hard AIs. Merry Go Chomp is a luck-based game where each player picks a color, and Chain Chomp will eliminate each player one by one until one stands. Spin and Barrett in Island Tour has you again picking colors, but instead of being eliminated by a Chain Chomp, a giant hammer will flatten you. I like this one more because it's pretty fun using the 3DS's touchscreen to spin the wheel, and you can change colors after every turn if you're superstitious. Slapdown tests players' reaction time by making them be the fastest to slap their hand down on the correct flower. The kicker is, the game will show the wrong flowers, and if you guess incorrectly, you're out. It's a fun game that makes you think quick on your feet, but again, the AI's reaction time are on another level. Similar to that is Loggerheads, but now players have to chop wood before all the others. But there's also bombs that pop up, which you must actively take cover from, and if you hit them, you'll lose a turn. Knowing this will make you second guess everything, and the risk of hitting a bomb makes it a lot more fun. Top 100 brought it back again, but now you don't use the Wii's motion controls, which isn't as immersive. All Fired Up is a pretty challenging minigame where 4 players are trying to avoid the fireballs and be the last alive. Island Tour's Horror Harriers is a pretty solid version of this, but you can't jump and the ghost movements are kinda slow and predictable. But I got a lot of issues with 10's Beeline Shrine. For one, it no longer is a last man standing minigame, but instead a timed one, which is only 30 seconds. Secondly, each player has 3 lives. Why not just eliminate them once they're hit? I mean, that wouldn't be too much of a problem if the minigame was even remotely difficult. The bees are so easy to avoid that everyone just ends up getting first, which is stupid. In Storm Chasers, players have to chase around a rain cloud in order to water their piranha plant the biggest, or you could just stand there like a Giga Chad and let the sheep run around. In Top 100's version, the movement feels a lot more fluid, which makes changing directions a lot easier. It's the same in Superstars, but it looks a lot better on the Switch. Vine With Me is a dual minigame where 2 players race to the finish line by precisely timing their jumps on vines. Top 100 is pretty much the same, but for some reason they toned down the speed a good bit in Superstars. It's pretty fun trying to go as fast as you can. It kinda makes you feel like Spider-Man. So for that reason, I'm gonna go with Top 100s. Tick-Tock Hop is another dual minigame where one player has to outlast the other by jumping over the clock hands. It does take a while to pick up speed, but once it gets going, these hands will fake you out. I love Superstars version because like Hot Jump Rope, you can choose to play endlessly, which gets very quick later on. Bowser Toss, it may be difficult to compete with AIs, but spinning Bowser in circles and perfectly adjusting the angle to throw him the farthest you possibly can is an absolute blast. DS's Cherry Go Round is as fun as well with the stylus controls, but it's just about spinning fast, nothing else. Motor Rooter requires both players to pick up speed and avoid electric obstacles by quickly shifting lanes. The movement is kind of funky and a little delayed, but that was fixed in Superstars, so now it's perfect. And the last two minigames of Mario Party 3, Winner's Wheel and Bobbing Balloons, are item minigames that were brought back in Superstars, but 3's version automatically gets the win because the only way to play the item minigames in Superstars is in the actual board mode, which makes no sense to me because you can in most Mario Parties. Now we move on to Mario Party 4. Definitely not my favorite Mario Party because the boards are so bland, but hey, at least the minigames are still a blast. Starting off, we have Photo Finish, which is just a puzzle. You just can't go wrong with a classic puzzle. Pix Fix in 9 is kind of similar to that, except it's a 1v3 minigame where both teams have to just rotate the puzzle pieces to make the image. The solo player obviously has less pieces to rotate. I don't really know why they didn't just make this minigame a free-for-all, and it doesn't beat moving the pieces around like a traditional puzzle. Book Squirm, a game where players have to avoid these falling pages by squeezing through the holes, has been used 3 times with very little changes. Top 100 stage seems a little smaller, which compensates for the overall smaller size of the minigame on the 3DS. But the best version is on Superstars because of the endless option. Once the AI are eliminated, it's just you and the book and it gets really tough trying to race to those holes, but it's super fun. Domination is a spam A button minigame where you have to smack down on a button to knock over the most dominoes. Jamboree brought back this same minigame, but now players can see their individual records instead of the general one displayed above. Because let's be honest, when one friend wins a spam button minigame, they pretty much win every time, so it's nice to track your own personal best. Right or Left has 2 teams work with their teammates to row a boat to the finish line. It inspired a handful of games. In 4's version, both players can paddle on either side, but holy crap, one slight paddle in the wrong direction will take you ages to get back on track. And having A to paddle one way and B to paddle the other makes it confusing, and I always lose track of which button rows where. It would have been a lot better if they used the joysticks or the triggers. 7's 8-player Synchronicity has 4 sets of teams row in unison with their teammates. It would have been more fun if teams had to actually row in unison to go faster, but it seems like you can just go as fast as you can without synchronizing, so it's kinda easy and requires little teamwork. 8's Road to Victory is the first of these minigames where one player rows one direction while their teammate rows the other. I love using the Wii's motion controls to row, but if your oar just very slightly hits one of these poles, you get completely stuck, and it can be infuriating to get unstuck. Super Mario Party's Robo Uprising is one of the few ally minigames I prefer over the original. It's still a 2v2 minigame, but the allies each teammate collects in the board section will assist them with their side of rowing. It may seem unbalanced at first glance, but it just means the side with less allies has to paddle harder, which is fun and chaotic to coordinate. Dory Pedal Paddle and Jamboree is the final version and it is pretty fun, but it's kinda basic compared to the other versions, except this motion you have to do to paddle, which actually works really well. In 3 Throw, you have to make as many baskets as you can. If you shoot at the top of your jump, you'll get the top row, middle jump gets the middle row, bottom of your jump gets the lower row. This game overall is kinda BS because the players on the ends get first chance at the gold hoops, which are worth more. Top 100s is a bit better than the original because it was kinda tough hitting shots in the lower baskets before. You had to shoot in a very precise spot, but not with Top 100s, and the balls feel a little more floaty, which doesn't really affect the gameplay, but I kinda like it. It's also easier hitting the bottom row in Superstars, but now it looks better, so I'll give it the dub. Bomb on Breakers is very similar to Mario's Puzzle Party we saw before, but now each color has its own unique shape, and the stage is just one big joint stage. And now you have to connect 3 of the same color instead of 2. Also like Mario's Puzzle Party, I found it easier to just slam down the pieces as fast as possible, but now it's even more broken because you can do this in the other players' areas and get the same amount of points, jacking their blocks or building a tower that could prevent them from sending down any more pieces. They brought this back as a solo experience in DS's where you progress through levels, but I personally like the fast-paced, toxic action against other players. Players in Stamp Out have to jump around creating stamps to cover as much of the page as possible. You can hold A to jump farther and cover more space, or if you're good at spamming A, you can do that too. It can also be pretty toxic covering everyone else's stamps. The best version in my opinion, 9's Flinger Painting, players instead use paint guns to cover the canvas. It's just a simpler, more fun way to play this type of minigame. You want to time your shots when your crosshairs are the biggest, and don't sleep on those corners. It's the last place your opponents will think to take. Splat Stamp and Star Rush is the same concept, but it's pretty unique because you use the touchscreen to slingshot paintballs. It's pretty fun, but you can only paint the shapes the game gives you, and they often have holes in them, which are hard to see when it's scattered with paint. So if any of your paint lands inside those gaps, it won't count, and it's a little slower paced than I'd like. Lastly is Jamboree's version of Stamp Out, which didn't make any changes, but now it's a little harder to do the spam A strat if you're playing with the Joy-Cons, at least with my method. Mario Speedwagons is a super fast minigame where players race to the finish line by changing gears at the perfect time. You can get a little boost at the start, but I have no idea how to do this, and I often just spin out, completely throwing the game. I like the UI a lot in Top 100's version, and now you get your own screen, which isn't that big of a deal in this specific minigame. Fish and Drips is a terrible minigame. This is another minigame where the solo player gets to see the combinations of buttons they need to press in advance, while the 3-team does not. I already explained why this concept is crap. The solo player will win 99% of the time. It's the same in 7's Coin Op Bop, which we talked about before, but at least this version is a coin minigame, so everybody wins. It still favors the solo player more, but at least the team gets something out of it. Staying on the topic of coin minigames favoring the solo, Money Belts has one player on top getting first dibs on all the fallen coins, while the 3 players collect all the scraps. The solo player does have to avoid obstacles, but it's not really difficult. Superstars brought it back with smoother controls, and now the players cheer every time they grab a coin, which is a cute touch. Goal is a pretty fun minigame. One player is the goalie, while the other players have to try to score 10 goals before the timer runs out. 4's is okay, but if you play the game more than once as the goalie, it's pretty easy to save because the goal is so small. But in Top 100, the goal is bigger, so you have to work a lot harder to dive and make those saves. Definitely more balanced. It's the same case in Superstars, but with a better look, so this shall be the winner. In Blame It on the Crane, one player controls a crane, while the others have to avoid getting picked up by that crane. There are shy guys to get in the way of the players, but in 4's version, they just stick to the outside, so they're kinda pointless. The shy guys in Top 100s are now Koopas, but they're slightly more spread out. Jamboree's, though, is by far the best version. The spinning platform in the other versions were pretty slow, which you would think would make the solo player's job easier, but if you missed, the team can just walk in the opposite direction for as long as they can, so it would take forever to get another chance. Also, the shy guys are a lot more fluid and unpredictable, which can be a nuisance for both the team and the solo player. Lastly, the best change in my opinion is that the crane can be extended and dropped in separate motions. Before, you had to extend the crane and drop it all in one button press, which means you needed to start the motion pretty early to catch them, so it was pretty difficult. Now I would say it's fairly balanced. Reverse-A-Bomb has each team pressing buttons as fast as they can to send bombs back to the other team in order to blow them up. 4's and Top 100's version are virtually the same, but I'd much rather play Superstars. In the other 2 games, if a bomb blows up near you, you get knocked back and stunned for a solid amount of time, so you're down one teammate for a couple of seconds. If this happens, you're pretty much done for. It's super hard to make a comeback. But in Superstars, it's much harder to get blown up, so if a bomb does explode on your side, you still have a chance to turn the tables. The teams in Order Up have to memorize the position of the food and answer Toad's questions after the table spins. As far as memory games go, this one's not too shabby. Top 100 brought it back with no changes, but I think 4's version looks great, so why not play it on the big screen instead of the 3DS? Dungeon Duos is a long and intense 2v2 minigame where both teams must work together with their teammates to get past a variety of different obstacles. The only reason I like Superstars more, besides how it looks, is because in the spinning platform section, the AI will actually wait for you to make the jump before moving it again. Yeah, it's not as fast as the original, but one mistake in this section can easily cost you the game, so it's nice to be safe. Rumble Fishing is a fun one where players have to reel in their fish the second they feel the vibration in their controller, with the fastest person winning. Jamboree's dual minigame, Fast Fishing, is pretty similar, but instead of feeling for a rumble, you have to watch the bobber sink, and you use the motion controls to yank the rod back, which is fun. It's pretty nice because I know not everyone enjoys having vibration on in their controllers, especially now that most controllers are wireless, and having vibration enabled drains more battery. Trace Race is a game where players have to trace the line as accurately as possible. The problem I have with 4's is that the line is too thick, and there's a slight delay to when the line appears. With this, it can be difficult knowing if you're doing a good job or not. This was fixed in top 100s, but now the whole minigame is more zoomed out, on top of already being on a much smaller display. But thankfully in Superstars, all the issues are fixed, but I'm just now realizing I kinda suck at this minigame. Team Treasure Trek has one player on one team find a chest, while the other searches for the key to that chest. They then have to meet up after finding the two items. It can be kind of annoying if you find your item first, because then you're just chasing after your teammate the rest of the game. And playing this minigame more than once is probably too many times. 10's Murky Maze though is a lot more fun though, because 1, I love the concept of trying to find your way to your teammate in a dark maze, and 2, it just looks a lot more visually appealing. Balloon of Doom is a Bowser minigame where you want to avoid blowing up the balloon. Each player ground pounds one by one to blow up the balloon. You can do large ground pounds or small ones. Yeah, there's only one loser and no winners, but because the losing player can lose so much to Bowser in the standard party mode, it makes it super intense, which I love. Balloon Busters is a Mario Party 7 mic minigame where each player must blow into the balloon by saying bigger or stop. This game's already a doozy because it requires you to have a 20-year-old accessory for a 20-year-old console. Apparently there is a way to play this without the mic, but I couldn't figure it out, and the game didn't give me any hints. Even worse, when the balloon pops, it takes out the other two players in line while saving the player who went before, giving them the win. That means that one player can screw over everyone else, and they had no control in it whatsoever. This makes the game more luck than strategy. In top 100s, you now play the minigame with just the bumpers, and one player is eliminated once per round, so everyone has a lot more control over who wins. This was the right way to do it, but it's not enough to beat the original in my opinion. Archaeologuess is a single-player boss minigame or dual minigame in free play where you have to find the odd piece out before your opponent, with the first to reach 3 points winning. It's actually pretty challenging, so you really need to focus. In 9's Earn It, players have to notice the pattern on the urn and pick the right option faster than everyone else, with first player getting the most points and last getting the least. It's a cool idea, but the patterns are so distinguished you can almost immediately tell what the right answer is, so it's a bit too easy for my liking. Korean Koopas is another boss/dual minigame where you have to tilt the platform to get the shells into their holes for 3 rounds. Now this is a rare time where Top 100's gyro controls are actually an improvement. In 4's, the movements are so sharp and quick that it can make getting the shells to their holes annoyingly difficult. But with the gyro controls, you can adjust the speed and direction to whatever you like, which makes everything more precise. The final fight is the super long final boss battle against Bowser. There are 2 sections you must survive that repeat themselves and get harder. Once you pass that, you must beat Bowser in the final fight by connecting electrical points. If you lose all your lives at any point, you have to start all over again. Top 100 decided to bring this back, but it's much easier because if you fall in the lava, you just lose a life and continue where you fell. But in the original, you just immediately lose. I don't know about you, but I like my boss fights challenging and not a breeze. And the final minigame of 4 is Beach Volley Folly, an extra minigame. It's pretty self-explanatory, 2v2 beach volleyball. The controls are pretty simple, but it's still super fun and competitive. I also really love that there's a little mini story mode where you have to keep beating teams who get harder and harder. Top 100 and Superstars may look and feel a lot better than the original, but they don't have this mode to play, which I miss. It doesn't have as much depth as Super Mario Sunshine or anything like that, but it's fun to whip out once in a while. Now we move on to Mario Party 5, an underrated game in the franchise, and it has some of my favorite board selections. To kick off the games that originated in 5, we have Coney Island. The 4 players have to collect as many scoops of ice cream as they can by paying attention to the shadows on the ground. It's a little BS because if you're fighting under a shadow with another player, it'll just give it to the tallest stack of ice cream, so if you fall behind, it's hard to come back. 7's Big Dripper is very similar, but now you're collecting honey. Besides running around collecting honey, if you feel a rumble, you have to duck before the bees attack you, leaving you stunned for a little if you're hit. I love the ultimatum of should I continue collecting honey, hoping that it's just a false alarm, or duck and stay safe. Meteor Melee in Island Tour has you catching stars. The kicker is that you have to avoid catching meteors by paying attention to the top screen. It uses the 3DS's dual screen perfectly, and it's super fun. The only downside is that you don't technically have to catch the stars, just run into them before they hit the ground. Top 100 brought back the original with pretty much everything the same, But after playing the other minigames, I realized that I much prefer this style of minigame with an added element. The best version in my opinion is Snack Attack in Super Mario Party. The popcorn you have to collect falls super quick and often, so every player has an equal chance of winning no matter where they are on the platform. There are also giant clumps that will award you with a solid chunk of points, but you gotta be careful because it could be a flaming volcano ball that will knock out half your popcorn, which is a super fun twist. And you can set a record, which is always fun trying to beat. Lastly, Superstars also brought back Coney Island, and yeah, it looks the best it ever has, but there aren't any changes and it's not enough to surpass Snack Attack. In Pushy Penguins, players have to avoid getting pushed off the platform by squeezing their way through the gaps. It's a super fun minigame that is perfectly difficult. Top 100's version has a more top-down angle, which isn't as appealing to look at, and the penguins are a bit slower, which makes seeing and squeezing through the gaps a little too easy. In Superstars, the speed thankfully returned to normal, and with the game now in HD, I felt like Neo dodging these penguins. Nightlight Fright is a minigame where you have to flash your light on a Chain Chomp when he's closest to you. If you do it too late, you're eliminated, and the player with the least amount of yards wins. There's nothing wrong with 5s, but Top 100s is for sure my favorite because being able to solely focus on yourself is super nice. Each player's Chain Chomp in every version moves at different speeds, so seeing them flash their light before you need to kinda psychs you out into thinking you need to turn around as well, which isn't really an issue if you're the only one on screen. Lastly is Superstars, which again, there's nothing wrong with this version, I just enjoyed Top 100s slightly more. Flower Shower is a simple game where players have to each collect the most flowers, with the gold ones being worth more. It's fun, but it only has one element to it. 9's Piranha Patch is the same exact concept, but with an added element. Obviously you want to collect the flowers as soon as they bloom, but you have to be super careful because they could also bloom into a piranha plant and take away a point. This constant second guessing and danger element keeps things interesting. Dinger Derby is a baseball minigame that inspired a handful of others, all of which are an absolute blast. It's actually a pretty tough minigame because you have to pay very close attention to the arm. If it winds up slow, it'll be a fastball, so you'll have to swing the second the ball is released. But if it winds up fast, it'll be a slow ball, so swinging too early will cause you to miss. And super slow means a screwball. With no breaks in between each ball, it's pretty tough to tell what speed the arm is winding up, because there's very little difference. 8's King of Swings, Shy Guy will pop up balls at varying heights, and you have to swing the Wii Remote to hit them. I will always find this minigame so fun, because it just reminds me of the good old Wii Sports baseball days, and it's super satisfying. It can be a little easy though if you've played the minigame multiple times. Top 100 brought back the original with no changes, but I honestly enjoy the way 5's looks more. Super Mario Party's All-Star Swingers is a lot like Dinger Derby, but it's less about hitting the ball and more about hitting the ball on beat because it's a soundstage minigame. I really enjoy this minigame, but for some reason I have a hard time hitting the ball on beat. I almost have to swing right before the beat hits to get a perfect, which isn't nearly as satisfying. Maybe it's just me. Superstars also brought back Dinger Derby with no changes, and it's definitely the best looking version. But the best overall version in my opinion is Jamboree's Parfait the Course. Ironically, this is the only minigame that's not baseball themed. Similar to Super Mario Party's version, it's a Rhythm Kitchen minigame where you have to hit the fruit on beat. I love this minigame so much because it's not about beating the other players, it's about working with them to create the perfect parfait. It's also an absolutely stunning looking minigame, and it feels a lot better hitting stuff on beat. Triple Jump has players going back and forth spamming A and B to float the farthest distance. I like Top 100s more because the environment looks a lot more colorful and fluid, and the camera's more zoomed in on your character when you're jumping. Hotel Goomba is a puzzle minigame where players have to strategically move Goombas around 3 rooms to reach the final exit. Top 100's version is nice because you get your own screen to yourself. Squared Away is a 1v3 minigame where one player is a small, quick cube trying to avoid the giant slow cubes who are the 3 players. Top 100 and Superstars decided to bring this game back with 0 changes, but again, I prefer how 5's looks over Top 100's. Obviously Superstars looks great, but there's one problem I have with the 2 remastered versions. When you win, you get the basic victory animation screen, but in the original, whoever loses can be seen being chased by a bunch of thwomps, which is so much more charming. In Heat Stroke, one player has to knock off the other 3 by using a hammer to knock out the platforms they're standing on. The solo player can fake swing to get them to jump, and fireballs will spawn on the platforms. I guess I'll have to say 100's version is the winner because the fireballs look more realistic. I don't know. Mathletes is a fun 1v3 coin minigame where one player hits 3 blocks to create an equation that will award them with coins, while the 3 team all hit 1 block each. It's a bit of a weird game to make 1v3. I love trying to create the best possible outcome, but it's ultimately a luck game, and the difference in coins between the teams can be huge. Maths of Glory in Super Mario Party is definitely my favorite version. It's a 2v2 minigame where each teammate hits a block and the numbers they get will be multiplied and added to their total ammo. That ammo is then used to shoot down the other team's fortress. Unlike Fives, you can actually control the outcome because the wheels are just slow enough. And even if you get a small number because you were aiming for the 6 and ended up getting a 1, one good turn can completely turn things around, so it actually takes a lot of teamwork. 2-Bit or Lose It has one player in a big spiky machine trying to hit the other 3 who are in much faster, smaller inner tubes. I've never really had a problem winning as the solo player in any version because of how big the vehicle is and all the obstacles that get in the way of the team. Top 100's version I noticed ran a bit more choppy and the team's movement was a little slower, which sucks because the team was already at a disadvantage. And obviously we know that Superstars version runs and looks the best. But I'm gonna have to side with the original because of the inner tube colors. Each character in the original had their own unique inner tube color, whereas in Superstars, everyone's was black. Top 100 had colors, but there were only 4 based on what number player you were, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or 4th. It's a small detail, but those small details are what gives the minigames so much character. Clock Stoppers is a 2v2 game where both teammates need to work together to move the hands to the position shown in the example. This is one of those minigames that works best with another real player, because these AIs piss me off, man. With another player, each person can be assigned to deal with one hand. But no, it doesn't matter to the AI that I'm closer to a hand. They push whatever they want. And when they do decide to push, do you think they push in the fastest direction? Of course they don't. Why would they? Absolutely triggering. Nick of Time in 8 is the same concept, but now it's a free-for-all, thank God. You use the Wii's motion controls to move the hands instead. It's a lot better than the last minigame for sure, but sometimes the controls don't work very well, probably due to the motion you have to do. And if a player gets a point and the next example pops up, your hands can unluckily be much farther away from where you need to be than the other players, so there is a little bit of luck to it. But this problem was fixed in 9's Twist Ending. You again have to use the Wii's motion controls to move the dial, but it works a lot better now. And because there are 3 of the same rounds for every player to complete, instead of a race towards one specific example, no player has an advantage over the other. Just be sure to slowly approach the indicated mark, or you'll have to go all the way around again. Defuse or Lose is an intense 2v2 minigame where both players of each team must ground pound the sparks to avoid blowing up the giant bomb. You're really gonna want to avoid this in 4's version because the explosion is intense. Top 100 adds a bit more detail to the minigame and a much less invasive boom. Jamboree's version has got to be the best because there's so much more detail to the surrounding environment and the fuses are smaller and more spread out, so it takes a lot more teamwork, coordination, and accuracy to ground pound them. Oh, and then this happened, which I've never seen before. Astrological is the first out of a handful of matching minigames. The example will pop up a symbol, and players must scramble to find a match. There will always be one less than the total number of players, slowly eliminating each player until there's one left. It's fun, but there's not a lot of depth to it compared to other minigames. Cardinal Rule in 7 is a 2v2 minigame where both teammates must ground pound 2 cards that match the example. It's a little bit of a step up from the last game, but sometimes you can just ground pound the 2 cards yourself if you're fast enough, which renders your teammate kinda useless. In DS's Memory Mash, they fixed this problem because you pretty much have to ground pound around the same time as your teammate to get a matching pair. But with everyone running around flipping cards over quickly, it's pretty hard keeping track of what card you need, so it quickly turns into a random ground pound fest, hoping to luckily match a pair. 10's Found It Pound It is more similar to 5's version where you have to find the example, but now the tiles have more complex pictures. It's a point system and there are 3 correct tiles so multiple players can get points. It's pretty fun trying to spot the differences. Jamboree attempted one more time to make a 2v2 matching game work with matchmakers, and they nailed it. Each player has to find a card each, which prioritizes teamwork and doesn't allow for one player to carry, and it doesn't reward random guessing and instead forces you to pay close attention. It may have taken a couple tries, but Nintendo got there eventually. Field Blasters has each player spinning around on a platform with a cannon and must time their shots to eliminate the other players. It's a minigame all about precision. It's better in Superstars because it forces you to be even more precise because you actually have to hit the player directly instead of being able to hit their cannons and taking a life away, which makes sense. Shock Absorbers is an electrifying minigame where two players compete to survive the longest by avoiding the amps. These amps are so unpredictable and quick, it's pretty hard to squeeze through those gaps, which the AIs are cracked at, unless they're playing another AI for some reason. Now, most single-player minigames I would prefer to be with other players, but Advance's Amplified is super entertaining. These amps on the outside of the platform will move and connect to make electric lines, and you have to dodge them. Similar to some of the Superstars minigames, this one is endless, and it's really fun trying to see how far you can go. It'll get much quicker and harder, so it doesn't get boring at all. Amp My Style and Island Tour is, poo-poo. The amps are way too slow and easy to avoid. So slow that the AIs will just off themselves to get it over with. Button Mashers is a dual minigame where bricks labeled with certain buttons will stack on top of each player. The players have to keep spamming each of these buttons at the same time to keep the blocks from squishing them. I enjoy Top 100s more because the different sized buttons on the GameCube controller make it kinda awkward to spam multiple of them at once. But now on the 3DS, they're all the same size and positioned in places we're all used to. Get a Rope is an atrocious minigame. There's no better way to put it. Two players pick a rope and one of them gets squashed. That's it. It's completely luck-based, but worse than that, it's boring to look at. There's no interesting gimmick like the other luck-based games. Six's Pitfall is slightly better because there's a small little cutscene of players swinging and trying to land on a platform. But if both players miss the platform, Shy Guy will just randomly pick a player to win. If this can happen, what's even the point of making us do anything in this minigame? Trash Landing in DS is by far the best version because anyone can win depending on their skill. There is a luck element when you're picking a rope because it decides what size platform you'll try to land on, with the smallest being the hardest. But after some practice and good timing, any player can win, so it's a nice balance of skill and luck. Peace Out is a super fun, simple, and extremely satisfying puzzle game where you have to quickly grab blocks to fill up all the empty space. Something about filling in those last couple of spaces hits me right in the happy parts of my brain. Fours is against an AI in a timed event, while DS's is a solo survival minigame where you progress through levels with no time limit. This is one of those games where I would rather see how far and fast I can go rather than compete against someone else. However, this would have been the perfect minigame to use the DS's touch controls, to move and place the blocks. But for some reason, that's not an option. Now, Mario Party Advance only has 2 originating minigames that influenced future minigames, partly due to how weird this game is compared to other Mario parties. The first minigame is real cheap, a solo minigame where the player casts their line and tries to reel in the biggest fish by pressing the button shown quickly. I feel like this minigame would have been much better if the total weight of all the fish were added up to create your final score. Instead, the biggest fish you catch is the only one recorded, so after a couple times of playing this, it'll get boring because you've probably already caught the biggest fish you could. Island Tour's Cheapers Keepers, however, turned that game into a true Mario Party minigame experience. This now 4-player minigame has 3 rounds of players spamming certain buttons to reel in the most fish. The pleasant beachy music, the competitiveness, and fishing animation makes this minigame top tier. The second and final minigame is Slammer, a dual minigame where you have to smash your opponents 5 times with a hammer. The roulette will spin and pick one of the 2 players. Whoever's picked gets to slam the hammer down. But the other player can defend by dropping a shield, which will then cause the hammer to backfire. It can be a super fun reaction time minigame if played against another real player. The AIs suck at this game, like really bad, and no 2 people are whipping out a 20-year-old Game Boy Advance, connecting them via a cable, and playing this together. And if you miss the millisecond window to hit your opponent and they drop their shield, they can just keep this down permanently, so you're pretty much screwed. Jamboree's similar dual minigame, Slappy Go Round, is done a bit better and is much easier to play with a friend. Both players have to ground pound to try to slap the other player with a giant hand, but if they jump over the hand, the ground pounding player gets slapped. Not only does this game focus on your reaction skills, but also psyching the other player out, which is super intense, like one of the most intense minigames in the series, to be honest. Mario Party 7 was the final Mario Party released on the GameCube, and I can't lie, they went out with a banger. The first minigame is Track and Yield, a game where 4 players have to be the last one surviving by jumping over hurdles. Once the speed picks up, you'll have to channel your inner Olympian. Top 100 used the same minigame, but it doesn't look or run smoother than the original, so 7 gets the W. Snow Ride has 4 players dodging and weaving through gates on snowboards to be the first one to finish. Getting through those final gates at the end without hitting them are virtually impossible. 8's Alpine Assault now has all the players sharing one course, which is toxic because the bounce mechanics are brutal. You lose a lot of speed, and this is one of those minigames where the motion controls are more of a hindrance and can be a little janky. They could have at least made it where you hold the Wii Remote horizontally instead of vertically. Rosalina's Radical Race minigame in Jamboree is on another level. I mean, this is like an entire Mario Kart race on snowboards. There's jumps, boosts, and the track looks beautiful. The only downside is, again, I wish the controls didn't require me to hold the Joy-Con vertically. Just because you have motion controls doesn't mean you need to use them, Nintendo. Picture This has players flipping through pages that match the one shown in the example. It's pretty challenging and creative. Island Tours Get Real has the same objective and mechanics, but now you're going through a film frame by frame instead of a book. They both tell interesting little stories, but I really like how smooth and fluid Island Tours is due to there not being an animation in between pictures. Target Tag has 4 players flying through the air trying to hit as many targets as they can while avoiding the Bowser ones. 8's Surfway Up is 2 players instead of 4, but there's one stupid mechanic that makes the original better. If you hold A, you can fly ahead of your opponent and snag all the points. What is even the purpose of this? If you're playing against an AI, it's the easiest win ever, but if you're playing against another player, then both of you are just holding A the whole time, so it's like playing the minigame normally anyways. What a strange decision. Poke Pummel is a spam A minigame that has been used 3 times. You have to be the quickest to hammer all of Poke's body parts. There's pretty much no difference in any of the versions, besides top 100s needing 3 hits for each segment, as opposed to 5. As you could probably see coming, I'll give the win to Superstars because it looks the best. Dart Attack is a pretty fun mic minigame where each player gets 5 darts to see how many points they can gather. If you miss all the targets, you get 0. Again, it's a fun minigame, but why do I need to have a mic to play this? You don't even blow into the mic to shoot the darts, you just say fire, which I can already imagine the delay. A simple button press would have been fine. It's a lot better in top 100 because you actually have to blow into the mic. A mic, I might add, that is built into the system. It makes a lot more sense this way. Duct and Cover has 4 teams of 2 work with their teammate to fix all the leaks in their pipe before everyone else. It's super simple, which means it doesn't allow for one team to excel past the others based on their skill, game knowledge, or brain power. With so many inspired elements of Jamboree's Chomp Wash, we once again see it on this list. As you could clearly see, players are very similarly fixing leaks on a pipe, and there's no question about which minigame is better. Cointagious is a very basic coin game where you randomly hit a dice block and get coins. It's luck-based and pretty boring. Super Mario Party's Timing is Money is much more entertaining because it actually takes skill to time your ground pounds. And you can't just spam the ground pound because if you hit a bomb, you lose all your coins, so it keeps you on your toes. Balloonatic, a game where one player is being carried by 3 balloons and has to avoid the 3 players from popping those balloons, would be a fun balanced minigame if the AIs were programmed a little better. You have to shoot in front of the balloons in order to pop them, but they'll just directly track them, so they'll never hit a thing. It can be very easy if you're the solo player. 9's Blooper Barrage has the same idea, but now it's a boss minigame where each player is trying to rack up the most points by dealing damage to the giant blooper. I like the sea urchins you have to shoot to stop them from targeting you, but because it's not difficult at all to hit the blooper, every player's score will be pretty similar, so whoever gets the stupid lucky final hit bonus will most likely be your winner. 10's Bullet Bill Bullies is the best iteration in my opinion. The solo player has to run back and forth on this switch platform and avoid the team's bullet bills, which is a much more fun mechanic than floating around the screen. It's the perfect combination of chaos and skill needed for either side to win. Jamboree's Mega Rocky Wrench Wreckers is another boss minigame with the same mechanics. I'm not the biggest fan of this minigame, mainly because I suck at it. I focus too hard on trying to find this wannabe Monty Mole that I get obliterated by those wrenches. I know, it's a skill issue. Pogo A Go-Go has one player controlling a platform with a bunch of holes, and 3 players on pogo sticks trying to avoid falling through those holes. It's a pretty difficult minigame for the team, but I love playing it for the challenge. When I'm locked in, I feel like a god squeezing in between those holes. Top 100 and Superstars brought it back with no changes, so I'll give Superstars the win for the usual reasons. Battery Ram is probably one of the most teamwork-oriented 2v2 minigames out there. Both teammates have to coordinate their battery ram back and forth around corners to reach the end first. If you've ever tried moving a couch in or out of a house with another person, this is exactly that. And the physics work exactly how you'd think they'd work too. Minor setback in Super Mario Party now has all 4 players working together to reach the end. It's pretty chaotic and fun with 4 real players, but if it's just yourself, you control everything, which kinda defeats the purpose. Yeah, it's like that as well in 7's version, but at least it's still kinda difficult moving around the corners. And the course is pretty much just a straight path, with the only obstacle being piranha plants you have to stop and wait for. Speaking of very teamwork-focused minigames, Sphere Factor has 2 teams working with their teammates to push a giant sphere through an obstacle course and reach the end. Top 100s does feel a bit faster, which I like, but the ball is smaller, which means there's less room for both players to push. Like, my AI teammate was absolutely no help. At one point, she just dipped in a different direction. World Peace has 2 players on each team find 2 separate pieces to make the one shape shown in the example. It's pretty chaotic searching through all the different pieces and is actually kind of difficult because some shapes aren't divided how you think they are. Super Mario Party's Half the Battle is just a blatant unfair minigame. Both teammates on each team are on opposite sides of the room. They collect half pieces of a sun and meet in the middle to collect them. What makes this minigame unfair, you ask? The allies. Without any allies, you can only pick up 1 piece, but with each ally you have, you can pick up an extra piece. So instead of going back and forth to create 1 sun, you can create multiple with 1 trip. As you could guess, the team with the most allies will most likely be the winner. I love Monty's Revenge, a minigame where the players are trying to be the one who can survive the longest with their head stuck out. If you do have your head out, the Monties will try to hammer and stun you. Out of the 3 versions of this same minigame, I'd have to say the original's the best. Sticking your head out anywhere will pretty much guarantee at least 1 Monty Mole immediately gunning for you, whereas in Superstars, it definitely seems like certain players are favored. Like someone will be surrounded by Monties and they will just pretend like they don't see them. And of course, the AIs know exactly when to duck. This isn't an issue in top 100s, but I just think 7's looks better. But better than all 3 of those is 9's Whole Hogs. It's the same concept where 3 players have to gain points by sticking their heads out, but the one now doing the hammering is the solo player using the Wii's cursor controls. If the team are able to escape being hammered 10 times, they win. It requires the solo player to be super fast and accurate, which makes it super fun and satisfying when you do win. It's a goofy, challenging minigame. Just be careful if Koopa Troopa's on the other team, because I kept getting him confused with the Monty Moles. Deck Hands is a pretty meh minigame where each player has to pick 3 cards at random, and whoever has the highest total of those 3 cards wins. I can deal with it being luck-based. I just wish there was some kind of gimmick instead of literally just picking cards. Like, look at DS's Chips and Dips. It's the exact same thing, but players see their total in the chips they're standing on, so it looks a lot more interesting, especially with the whole casino look. And there's a Bowser card in the final round that will eliminate half of your chips if picked, which spices things up a bit. And for some reason, Nintendo thought the original was good enough to bring back in top 100. I don't care that it's on the 3DS now, I still don't want to play it. The Final Countdown is a fighting platform survival minigame where each space counts down from a certain number. If that number reaches 0, it will release, then start over, getting faster and faster. It's pretty fun having to split your attention between boxing fools up and trying not to plummet to your death. The problem I had with Superstars is that the AIs were not nearly as eager to throw hands, so it wasn't as chaotic and fun. Top 100s is fine, but again, I prefer the look of the original more. Wait For It is a dual minigame where both players use hammers to get the balls on the other player's side. The player with the less balls wins. To be honest, there's not really any point to playing this minigame until the last 5 seconds because 1, the balls are so bouncy, you can just end up smacking it and it'll end up bouncing right back onto your side. 2, with just a few quick swings, you can pretty much get rid of most of the balls anyways. I would say 10's Goombrat Combat is even more fast-paced and crazy. However, it fully embraced it. In 7's, they wanted you to be strategic and precise with your swings, but those things aren't really necessary to win. In this minigame though, they just said screw it and made it an all-out punching fest where players don't need to think, just do. I can always appreciate that. And now it's a 4-player minigame, so everyone can play. Spin Doctor is another one of those meh minigames where 2 players compete to reach the finish line by navigating through spinning platforms. I'll give the win to Superstars because in the original, I always do the same thing and it always works out. I walk to the first platform, wait for an opening to the next, and repeat. The platforms never fail to get me where I need to go in 1 or 2 turns, left or right, and they always open up for me. That means if 2 players do the same thing, they will finish at the exact same time. But in Superstars, I found that some of the platforms would not open up for me, forcing me to backtrack. There's I guess a little more variability, but an overall very mid minigame. Royal Rumpus is a pretty fun duel minigame where 2 players compete to ground pound the most Goombas. It's simple, but it's the perfect amount of difficulty and still very competitive. Island Tour's Rat-a-Tat Flat is very similar, but now it's with 4 players ground pounding rats. There's nothing really bad about either minigame, I just feel like the original's duel format is a bit more intense. And come on, rats? I can find those in a New York subway, but I can't find a Goomba there though. Jumpman is a duel minigame against Donkey Kong where you're trying to be the first to reach the top by climbing ropes and jumping over barrels. It's not the most difficult minigame, besides maybe the end, but it's charming and a bit of a throwback. I'll say the original is better than Top 100's because it runs slightly smoother. I love the concept of Give Me a Break, a minigame where 8 players are trying to break closest to the edge without falling off. But in this version, it's the same thing every time with no indicator on where to break, so the player who's played this the most will probably win because they know exactly when to break. If that's not the case, then it's pretty much who guesses the best. However, in Jamboree Sled to the Edge, it doesn't matter how many times someone played this game. For one, the course is different lengths every time, so someone can't just memorize when to break. But to avoid it being a guessing game, it shows 2 toads beforehand breaking at certain points. One will always fall off while the other stays on. You then have to use them in the background as a reference point on when you should stop, so it requires you to pay close attention. So yeah, this one was done perfect. And the final Mario Party 7 minigame, you guessed it, is a puzzle game called Stick and Spin. You have to spin this wheel and connect 5 of the same colored balls that fall from above. If the balls stack up past the line at the top of the wheel, you lose. You can either play endless that gets harder and harder after every level, or you can play against an opponent. As far as puzzle minigames go, it's alright. Definitely not my favorite. DS's version is a lot lower quality because it's, well, on the DS, and you can only play it solo. Top 100's is pretty identical, nothing really to talk about here. And Superstars is also the same, but it looks very high quality, but I mean, how high quality can a puzzle game get? Mario Party 8 will always be my favorite Mario Party, my most treasured. We all grew up on a certain Mario Party that holds a special place in our hearts, and this is mine. The first minigame originating here is Crank to Rank, a race to raise your flag first by spinning the Wii Remote in circles. It may take a bit of technique to be good at, but that's what makes it so fun. Top 100 didn't use much Mario Party 8 minigames, but this was one of them, and personal feelings aside, this is probably a better control system. It uses the touchscreen to spin the wheel, so everyone can have fun playing it because it doesn't require a specific technique. You can very easily tell that Jamboree's Nightlights was very heavily inspired by Crank to Rank. With the same motion as the Wii's, you race to light up your lights first. And this is by far my favorite version because of how beautiful the lit castle looks. It's like the final cutscene of a story game. And the spinning motion on the Switch feels a lot better. At the Chomp Wash is a fun, exhausting minigame where you have to shake the Wii Remote as fast as possible to wash all the paint off the Chain Chomp. It may look a little sus when you're playing this, but it's no doubt a blast. Top 100 brought back this game with new touchscreen controls, but in this case, I prefer the Wii's. There's nothing like vigorously shaking your Wii Remote up and down with a couple of friends. And for the final time, we again see Jamboree's Chomp Wash, with both minigames sharing the objective of removing all the paint from Chain Chomp. Now this minigame is pretty different from 8's, especially the controls, and they both offer two very different experiences, so I think I'm going to disqualify Jamborees and say 8's is the best. Winner or Dinner is a 2v2 coin minigame where players have to collect as many coins as they can while avoiding all the hazards. Which version you like the best depends on how difficult you like the minigame. In the original, to get any coin near a piranha plant, you had to do this little juke move to get them to chomp down and miss you and then go in for the coin. It's definitely not the easiest thing to do, but it makes it more challenging. Superstars piranha plants are a lot more reluctant to snatch you up, so it's easier for both teams to collect coins. Personally, I like the challenge and the tech you need to be good at this minigame, so I'ma go with 8's. Another 2v2 minigame is Paint Misbehavin', where players are trying to paint Goombas their team's color. Whoever paints the most wins. Superstars is better because the paintballs are smaller, which means you need to actually line up your shots instead of just moving back and forth, spamming the shoot button. Aim of the Game is such a pointless freaking minigame, and it bewilders me why Nintendo brought it back to top 100. You have to shoot cards with numbers on it to accumulate the highest score. The card numbers are always the same, and so are the number of cards you can pick. So every time you play this, if you just pick 50 and the rest times 2, or 2 50s and the rest times 2, it's a guaranteed win every time. A minigame this simple and an easily obtainable max score should not be a thing. I'm gonna give the win to top 100s because the screen is smaller and there's actually a time limit, so it can be a bit more difficult spotting the cards you need and picking them on time. Still not enough to make this game good though. Glacier Meltdown is a 4-player free-for-all where players have to be the last one standing on the icy platform by avoiding the shell and knocking each other off. What annoys me the most about this game is that if you're anywhere near the edge, you'll gravitate off, even if you're moving uphill, which makes absolutely no sense and has eliminated me countless times. The best minigame out of this group is 9's Mega Mayhem. It's a lot less complex compared to the other fighting survival games, but at least the physics make sense. And you have to be strategic when you punch your opponent, which you need to make sure you do when the platform is tilted forward. Top 100 was bugged for me, but it doesn't matter because I still would have picked 9's due to it running smoother and looking better. Trial by Tile is a solo player extra minigame where one player has to find the pattern of faces shown in the example. There are 3 different levels that get harder and harder. I don't know what it is, but looking for patterns like this just activates something in my brain. It's like doing a crossword puzzle or trying to find Waldo. It's just a fun little brain teaser. Super Mario Party's Juice Box takes this minigame and turns it into a 2v2 where each teammate has to connect their half of the box around each pattern, making it whole. I really do love this minigame. I just love the solo experience of 8's a bit more, which also has a lot more depth with the different levels and records you can set. Lava Lobbers is a super intense duel minigame where 2 players on opposing sides must shoot each other off. You can shoot directly at them or lob your shots, which will land on them shortly after firing. It's super fast paced, and oftentimes players will hit each other at the same time, so when you do get that final shot off, it feels like a scene from an action movie. 9's Crossfire Cavern took a pretty creative approach to this. The 2 players are still opposing each other in minecarts, but now they're working together to take out Bowser Jr., who's on a track in between them. I love the teamwork, how long the tracks are, and the fact that you can accidentally shoot each other. It's an awesome minigame. I just love how intense 8's version is. I can honestly play this minigame all day. Eye on the Prize uses the Wii's motion controls to sort colored balls in their correct bins. It's a pretty fun dual minigame, but there's so little time to react, so it can be pretty hard to change to the right direction. I've played this minigame for years, and it's still pretty much a chaotic guessing game. 10's Moving Mushrooms is a cool concept, but it's just too difficult for the solo player. It's a 1v3 minigame where one player has 3 girders to themselves, yes, that's what these things are called, while the team each has one individually controlled. Both sides are trying to direct the good mushrooms to their bins and the bad ones into the other teams. But with so much happening, it's impossible to keep track of everything going on as the solo player because you control all 3 girders at once. And it's not like the solo player has some sort of advantage. They have the same amount of girders as the team does, but they only have to focus on one, so it's a lot easier for them. Thankfully, Jamboree's Twist and Sort minigame got it just right with everything. Using the same motion controls, you have to sort each item to their correct bin, similar to 8's minigame. But the challenge isn't reacting with near perfect timing, but instead keeping the balls balanced on your girders above while you sort the balls below, which is a lot less stressful and impossible. And now it's a free-for-all where all players need to control multiple girders at once, so it's much more fair. And lastly is Blazing Lassos, a game where you use the motion controls to spin your lasso and try to catch barrels. This is probably my favorite use of the motion controls because they work super well and it actually feels like you're spinning and throwing a lasso. Get Along Goomba in Island Tour is a really fun minigame where everybody's fighting to catch the most Goombas by using the DS's touchscreen to create and throw their lassos. The bigger the lasso, the more Goombas you can catch. Like I said, very enjoyable, but it doesn't beat feeling like an actual cowboy in 8's minigame. But what does trump both of those is Jamboree's Coin Corral. It's a 2v2 coin minigame that uses the same motion controls as 8's, which I'm super glad they brought back. Instead of rounding up chests to acquire points to simply beat your opponent, you really want to collect these chests to collect coins that go straight into your pocket, which means everyone has fun winning. You can collect the smaller chests by yourself, but the big ones require both teammates to coordinate their efforts, which is a really fun added element. Now we move on to Mario Party DS, another S-tier game, one that the other Mario Parties on the 3DS should have followed. The first originating minigame is Boogie Beam. Players who are caught in the light must hit the light pose, while players not in the light must hit the dark pose. It's pretty fun and interesting, just not that hard. I do like that players not in the light still participate though. That can't be said about Super Mario Party's Time to Shine, but it's done in such a fun and unique way, it doesn't matter. It's a soundstage minigame, which means you have to hit the same pose Waluigi does with perfect timing. It's a fun, challenging, and absolutely groovy minigame. But better than that is Jamboree's Copycat Curry. It has the same exact premise and controls as Super Mario Parties, but all 4 players are working together, and the gimmick is that each player is posing to add spices to the pan as opposed to just random dancing, so it has a lot more character. Parachuting Gallery has 4 players falling through the air who need to fall through the correct shape shown above. Whoever falls through the most correct shapes wins. My favorite part of this minigame is just ramming into other players and taking their space. Trounce and Bounce is even more fun because it's a survival minigame instead, which is a lot more intense. You have to avoid hitting the ground by landing on these bouncy blocks, and each time you come up, less blocks will appear, which means you'll be fighting for your life towards the end when there's only a few left. I just love the way it looks and performs. Flash and Dash will definitely have your heart racing. One player has to navigate through a dark maze while avoiding the other 3 players with flashlights. If they're caught, they lose, but they can use the alarm on the bottom that will indicate when someone is close. I mean, this is literally a horror game. I absolutely love it, but also hate it. 9's Zoom Room is kinda similar, but 2 players are working together to catch NPC Baby Bowser. He's much faster than you are, which means you really need to coordinate with your teammate to trap him in between you. It can be pretty fun with another real person, but as you could guess, it's kinda hard working with an AI teammate. The last minigame for the DS is Dress for Success. You have to match the correct body part to the given head by watching the shuffling cards. It's not very hard at all, but it's so hilarious seeing the mismatched characters. Like, why does Yoshi look so naked here? But if you were to take this minigame and turn it into something made for infants, no, you know what? Birds. Then you would have Star Rush's top it off. You have to match the top card to the picture given. But bro, come on. Look at this. I think the only way you could lose this is to be completely blind in both eyes. And even then, I'm convinced that you could still beat it. Like, ooh, I wonder if the flower power goes to the block. Get out of here. With the second and last Mario Party on the Wii, we have Mario Party 9. This was the first game to use the mechanic of everyone sharing one vehicle rather than moving separate, which I'm honestly not the biggest fan of. The first minigame is Speeding Bullet. 4 players use the motion controls to race their bullet build to the finish line while avoiding obstacles and hitting boosts. The controls can be a little difficult getting used to, but they're not bad, just touchy. And it's so much better than Top 100s because you use the gyro controls to steer. So yeah, you have to turn your 3DS back and forth pretty fast, so I can't see jack diddly squat. I mean, what was Nintendo even thinking? Jigsaw Jumble has players trying to finish 5 puzzles by quickly finding the last piece. You can try to find the last piece by just looking at them, or you could do what I do and just quickly try all the pieces because I suck at jigsaw puzzles. I do like Top 100 slightly more because you use the stylus to drag pieces, which means you can do my strat even faster. But my favorite jigsaw game is the 8-player Puzzle Pandemonium in Jamboree. As you can tell by now, I'm a big fan of these 8-player co-op minigames. This one has everybody working together to complete puzzles, which requires everyone to be quick and accurate. It's just so satisfying watching piece after piece plop down to create a cute little picture. The two versions of peak precision is going to come down to personal preference. You have to press the button shown as quickly as possible to climb the cliff. There's one version on the Wii and another on the 3DS and Top 100. I personally enjoy the Wii's more because I'm much more familiar with the Wii remote, so I can zoom up the cliff. But if you like the 3DS button layout more, I wouldn't blame you. Goomba bowling is pretty much bowling with a line of moving Goombas you need to hit. It may be tough lining up the perfect shot at the perfect time, but when you successfully hit a line of these guys, you'll shiver in satisfaction. Now for this minigame, I definitely much prefer 9's version over Top 100's because of the controls. Top 100, you use the buttons, but in 9's, you use the motion controls, the same exact way you bowl in Wii Sports. And come on, who doesn't love Wii bowling? Manner of Escape is kind of a luck-based game where players have to find the right doors that lead to the exit. I say kinda luck-based because you can just watch the player who enters the correct door and follow them. So you can let someone do all the work and then just snag the final door at the end, getting first. There's not really much of a difference in Superstars besides the better graphics. Better than that by a long shot is Star Rush's Haunted Hallways. You have to try to find the winning room. You do this by using the map to see which rooms you visited and avoiding all the booze. It's a pretty fun little scavenger hunt. And when someone does find the room first, it will reveal its location, so then it becomes a race to second and third, which is a whole different element packed into this minigame. Bumper Bubbles is one of the most toxic minigames ever. 4 players float around in bubbles trying to collect the most balloons. But with the gaps being so tight, one bump from an opponent will send you right into a spiked ball, popping your bubble and losing all your balloons. Not a handful, not a half, all. And those rats are right there ready to scoop up everything. So yeah, it's toxic, but I'd have it no other way. But once again, I must ask, what the hell was Top 100 thinking? Sure, the original had tilt controls to move left or right, but how am I supposed to carefully squeeze through those gaps when I'm moving my screen all over the place with gyro controls? I'm not mad, just disappointed. Plunder Ground is another shuffle and watch minigame where you have to pick the Monty Moles with gems in their chest, but this one's a little more hands-on because you're an actual player on the field instead of just a cursor. This means that you can run all over the place and try to confuse the other players by getting in their way. And you have to actually run over to the chest to claim it. It's not just about paying attention, it's also about being quick and a little lucky. Island Tour's Cheap Diamonds is pretty basic compared to 9's. It's pretty easy keeping track of the fish, so it comes down to who can press the button the fastest. And for some reason, this minigame takes so long compared to others, which would be fine if it was more enjoyable. Pizza Me Mario is one of those crazy unique minigames that is such a blast to play and look at. Each player is given a certain topping, and they have to time their throws to top each slice. The mechanics and controls are nothing special, but making a super fun minigame out of making a pizza kinda impresses me. Island Tours Top This is another fun food topping minigame where players compete to add the most toppings to the cakes. Great minigame, but it's just about speed. I like the timing and accuracy you need in 9's minigame. Tackle Takedown is a 1v3 game where one player must make it to the end zone while avoiding the tackles by the team. The solo player is given 3 boosts to help them. There is honestly no greater feeling in this world than absolutely juking your opponents out of their socks in a Mario Party game. But there's also not a worse feeling than the AI doing the same to you, because these guys are NFL Hall of Famers with those moves. All 3 versions, 9, Top 100, and Superstars, are all pretty identical, so I'll give the most accessible and better performing version the win. Sand Trap is a very strategic, teamwork-oriented 1v2 minigame against Bowser Jr. You and a teammate must ground pound rows and columns to remove specific spaces in an effort to get Bowser Jr. to fall through them. You have to have good communication due to the spaces needing both teammates to ground pound simultaneously in order to be removed. I first thought this minigame was impossible, but I found out that the strat is to first trap Bowser Jr. by eliminating places he can run to and then take out the space he's standing on. Knowing this made the game feel more strategic and 10 times more enjoyable. 10's Ground Pound Pals shares the same mechanics and concept, but now it's your standard 2v2 minigame where each team is competing to collect the most coins. It's simple and fun, but it's not nearly as strategic and rewarding as the first. Womp Stomp is the first out of a handful of minigames where each of the 4 players have to decide to make a move or do nothing. An event then takes place based on who and who didn't elect to do something. Womp Stomp is a boss minigame where each player decides to move or not move the lever in front of them. One lever pull will move the table once, and the player who lands in front of Womp will be squished while the others jump onto him to ground pound to get points. So you obviously want to guess if you should pull the lever or not so you don't get turned into a pancake. The one thing that annoys me is that the first player to climb on Thwomp's back gets to start ground pounding earlier, therefore getting more points. I don't know if Nintendo did this intentionally, but other than that, a pretty creative, fun minigame. Using the same concept is 10's Fruit Cahoots, where the objective is to collect the most fruit. It's pretty fun trying to read the minds of other players, or in my case, AIs, of what they might do. Just be careful because if you're wrong, you could get blown up and lose points. Conquistador de Force has players jumping on buttons this time that everyone can see, so you actually have a chance to control the outcome if you can count fast enough. But I had a rough time trying to do this because of the amount of spaces there were and the AIs constantly jumping on and off the buttons. There's a little too much going on for my liking, but Jamboree's tricky turntable is perfectly refined for this 2v2 coin minigame. The objective is to collect coins and avoid bombs by jumping on and off buttons to move the platform. Like Star Rushes, you can see what the other players do, but because there's less going on, less spaces, you're only focused on their movements. It's a back and forth mind game of players trying to fake each other out, a minigame element that can't be topped. I love it. The final 9 minigame is Shell Soccer, a 2v2 extra minigame where the goal is to eliminate all the opponent's Goombas by kicking a Koopa shell like a soccer ball. You can pass the shell back and forth to your teammate. Out of all the sports games, this is probably my favorite because it has a unique Mario twist to it. It's not just like regular hockey or volleyball, it's different. This is demonstrated by the scoring mechanics, like how you can bounce the shell off the wall and hit multiple Goombas at once, which I couldn't pull off, but Wario's devious ass sure could. Superstars took the original, refined the mechanics and movement, and gave it a good visual upgrade, so this is the version I usually gravitate towards. Now that we're getting closer to the end of Mario Party games, we have less minigames to talk about because 1, we already talked about a lot of them because they were inspired by past minigames, and 2, there's less Mario Parties to use these minigames as inspiration. Island Tour is a rough one, at least to me. There's nothing really too special about it, except the minigames, of course. The first minigame is Goomba to Maneuver, a game where players have to navigate their line of Goombas carefully through spiky obstacles. The player left with the most Goombas wins. It's a neat idea, but you can't interact with other players, which takes away the fun, toxic element. A cornucopia, on the other hand, is incredibly toxic. Instead of Goombas, you have to maintain a plate of acorns, but it's hard to do that when you're getting tossed around like a dead squirrel in a silverback gorilla's hands. But man, it is so fun bullying the other players. I actually feel kinda mean doing it, even though my opponents are AIs. This is why this minigame is my favorite version. The first segment in Peach's Day Off in Jamboree is the exact same minigame except with presents instead of acorns. Still super fun to push your opponents into oncoming traffic, but it's not the entire minigame focus, so it's not as impactful. The second originating minigame is Kebab and Weave. Players have to survive a constant barrage of skewers and be the last alive. It gets pretty difficult the longer it goes on, especially if you get trapped in a corner. Cliffside Crisis is the same setup, but now the platforms you stand on also move, so it's a little more difficult. Because of this, you really need to hone in on your movement skills to jump in and around the constantly moving blocks, a super fun aspect if you ask me. And once in a blue moon, you can actually stand on top of the first row of blocks, which makes it a ton easier and incentivizes you to keep trying. The final Island Tour minigame is Pool Buoy. You have to use your stylus to spin and move the beach ball in the direction of the flags, with the winning player being the one who collects the most. It actually looked and performed much better than I expected. Bumper Bugs and Star Rush, though, performed the opposite. You have to navigate through all 8 flags, but I do not like this style of movement, and it didn't work well for me, but that might be because of how I'm playing the minigame. It's also not as charming as the original. The touchscreen is just a blank screen. Mario Party 10 is probably one of the most slept on Mario parties. probably because the Wii U itself was slept on. I wish more people got to enjoy this game the same way I got to because it's honestly a pretty solid title. The first minigame is Spiked Ball Scramble. The 4 players have to pick a path before they are revealed. One of them will be filled with swinging spiked balls, while the other is nice and safe. My toxic trait is wanting to pick the dangerous path because I believe I can survive every time, even if the spiked ball takes up the entire path. With a similar concept is Super Mario Party's Cruisin' for a Bruisin', but now the players are being chased by bruisers and the dangerous path has blockades meant to slow you down. The only problem is that the blockades barely slow you down, so it doesn't really matter what path you take, so I'll give the win to Tens. Fruit Scoot Scurry has players hopping around on platforms collecting the most fruit. It's pretty simple, there's not much more to the minigame than that. I'm actually going to give the first segment of Daisy's Field Day the win on this one. Yeah, it's not the entire focus of the minigame, but the platforms are constantly moving, which forces you to change directions, making it more difficult and less predictable. Pipe Sniper is a fun arcade-type shooter minigame where you have to get the most points by shooting the piranha plants. And just like those arcade games, you can also get bonus points by shooting harder targets like the bats in the background or the gold piranhas. No brain power needed, just aimless fun. Star Rush's Piranha Plantimonium also has you shooting piranha plants, but now players are lined up on 4 sides of a square moving back and forth. It's not as entertaining as the arcade-style game, and it doesn't take as much speed and skill to win. Flash Forward is a style of minigame that will always be fun no matter if you win or lose. Players fight to be the center of attention when the timer counts down and takes a picture. The fighting mechanics are nothing new, but I always have a laugh with friends and family when I see those goofy-ass poses at the end. There's always at least one person off to the side who looks completely lost, and it's hilarious. I don't blame Top 100 for bringing this minigame back because of how fun it is, but if you had to choose which one to play for some reason, you might as well pick Tens. The only problem I can maybe find with the original is that if you wanted to get more funny pictures, you'd have to keep replaying the minigame. But in Super Mario Party Slapperazzi, there are 7 different rounds in just the one minigame, all with different photos to be taken. Because of this, this is the best. And there's an added element of having to run quickly to Koopa before he takes the picture. Superstars also brought back the original, and it's pretty unchanged, which is good because Tens was near perfect. Sorta Score gives players 2 chances to spin and land on the highest points possible. Your timing has to be impeccable to land on a good space, which makes landing on the 100 so much more satisfying. Surprisingly, I'm going to give Top 100s the win because you can skip the AI's turns. It can take a while to get through them all, so this helps speed things up if you're like me and impatient. Skewer Scurry can be a pretty tough minigame to win as the solo player. They control 4 sets of skewers on different sides of the arena, and 3 players have to avoid them by moving around these blocks. The solo player can try to pump fake the team, but it takes a little too long to wind back the skewer and fire it, and the team can just simply move around the block. To be honest, I feel like the hardest obstacle is your teammates. In Superstars, the skewers are a little faster to come out, making it more difficult for the team and much more balanced. Whoopee! Another shuffle and watch minigame, Shy Guy Shuffle. But this one is probably my favorite. You have to pick the shy guy who holds the most donuts. Nothing special, but I absolutely adore all the characters at the end sitting together happily eating the donuts. It's so freaking wholesome. Super Mario Party's Lost in the Shuffle is still interesting to look at with these Toad Russian doll things, but it can't beat 10's ending cutscene. In fact, I don't think there's much that can. Bowser's Roulette Rage is a Bowser minigame where the players have to survive by avoiding the slots Bowser bets on. It's not the most difficult minigame because it gives you just enough time to escape when the roulette stops spinning, but one slip up can cost you a lot of lives, so never let your guard down. It's the Pits I would say is even easier because you actually have a countdown on when the wheel will stop, so you can just avoid being on the wrong space when that happens. And why is this an ally minigame? It really doesn't make sense here. Bump Set Spike is a simpler version of full-on volleyball where one player on each team bumps up the ball for their teammate to spike. It's pretty basic and kinda easy, but the motion controls are enough to make it fun. Jamboree's 8-player co-op minigame, Ball Volley, is far from basic. The goal is to pass the balls all the way down to the final player who will then spike it. But instead of each player just pressing a button to hit, they have to run back and forth to catch the ball before it hits the ground. and different sized balls fall at different speeds. The 100% teamwork this game takes, plus the different elements, definitely makes this the best version. When I was playing Jamboree's new boss minigame, Mega Sting Bee Stompers, I swear I've played this somewhere before. Then I remembered 10's boss minigame, Mega Goomba Ladder Leap. They both require players to climb up and jump on the boss to get points. Out of the two though, Jamboree's is much better. 10's is way too easy avoiding the hazards and jumping on Goomba, which means everyone's score remains virtually the same the entire minigame. And you know what that means, the winner will probably be determined by the final attack bonus. Yippee! But Jamboree's is much more of a challenge due to the Mega Bee's unpredictable quick movements, being only able to jump on it once, and the tiny bees that get in the way. You have to be a lot more skillful to win than to just climb up a ladder. Continuing with boss minigames, we have Kamek's Rocket Rampage, a 2D boss minigame very similar to Jamboree's Bowser Crashers. 10's has you collecting rockets and firing them at Kamek while avoiding Bullet Bill she spawns, while Jamboree's has you launching yourself instead while avoiding Bowser's attacks. They even share similar mechanics. If you grab a bigger rocket worth more points, you're slower and more vulnerable to being hit, and in Jamboree, you can charge your attack to max power, giving you more points if you hit him, but also making you slower. I love you 10, but Jamboree has you beat here in every aspect. For one, Bowser is a much cooler boss to fight. I mean, that's why they save him for the end of every Mario game. Secondly, he has more than just one attack, which can't be said about Kamek. And last but certainly not least, Bowser has a second phase where he gets more menacing and the camera angle changes. When I played this the first time and thought we had finished him, I was in awe when I saw the health bar shoot up and he emerged from the smoke. Badminton Bash is a very fast-paced bonus game, just like regular badminton. The controls are nice and simple, nothing too crazy, but man, do you gotta be the Flash to play this. I got absolutely whooped, but it's one of those games that's fun getting whooped in. Call me crazy. I'm glad Top 100 brought back such a fun game, and it's still great, but you know at this point I'd rather play the original. Jewel Drop is the final minigame of 10's, another puzzle minigame. And this is probably my worst. I blow chunks at this game. How am I supposed to connect 3 jewels of the same color when they just go limp? It's like rocket science to me. You can play against an opponent in both Top 100s and 10's, but I'm convinced I couldn't even beat an infant at this. If you're good at this, I worship you. Oh, and I guess 10's is the best. The second to final Mario Party we're talking about is Star Rush. I originally thought this game was trash because I was so used to the conventional games, but after spending more and more time on it, I realized it's kind of iconic. It introduced us to so many cool and unique modes that I still treasure to this day. The first minigame is Wheelin' and Wigglin'. 4 players are driving Wriggler vehicles, and they have to eliminate their opponents by ramming into them. I can appreciate them trying something different, I really can, but this camera angle makes it kinda difficult to really see anything, which makes it a little annoying because the AIs don't need to see anything. And what is the point of this other camera angle? It offers no value whatsoever. Super Mario Party's Train in Pain takes that same concept, gives it a better, more traditional camera angle, and turned it into a 2v2 game. It's a super fun, chaotic game done the right way, and actually makes sense to have your allies included. Pop Quiz is a quiz minigame where players have to answer questions correctly based on what they see. It's equally challenging and possible, which is how every minigame should be. Super Mario Party's Absent Minded is my personal favorite because of how close you have to pay attention to every detail. You have to pick the character that's missing in 3 rounds, and each round has a different gimmick. It's a fun brain teaser and test your Mario character knowledge a little bit. Staying on Super Mario Party, we have Drop Quiz, but they turned it into a unique 1v3 game. The players watch a video showing a bunch of different characters, many of which are holding fruit. The solo player picks a question they think the team will answer wrong, while the team stands on the answer and will fall into if they're wrong. It's a very different approach to a minigame like this, and they did a good job, but it's not very hard for the solo player. And if there's more than one player left on the team and they're unsure about a question, they can just stand on different answers, and if one player survives, they all win. Dodge Fuzzy Get Dizzy laid the groundwork for Jamboree's Fuzzy Heights. You have to reach the finish line at the top by spinning the stylus and avoiding the fuzzies. Apart from my terrible performance, there's only like 2 sets of fuzzies you have to avoid. The minigame made it seem like there were a whole bunch of them and you had to carefully navigate through, so it's pretty much just a standard race. In Fuzzy Heights, however, there are so many different kinds of fuzzy traps, which require different ways of navigating through them. This is exactly what I was expecting in Star Rush's version, but I'm glad they perfected this minigame eventually. And there's no end to it, at least from what I can tell, so you can try to go as far as you possibly can. Super Mario Party, the final Mario Party we'll be talking about. Obviously, I know there are 2 other Mario Party games out there, Top 100 and Superstars, but since all of those minigames are reused from older games, we've already talked about all of them. And since the only other Mario Party to release after this was Jamboree, there's only 2 minigames Jamboree may have taken inspiration from in Super Mario Party. The first minigame is Get Over It. You, your teammate, and all your allies must jump over the spiked balls with perfect timing to survive longer than the other team. It's pretty simple, but at least you're always doing something, and it can be kinda competitive. Very similar to that is the 20-player Koopathon minigame Burning Bridges, where players have to survive by jumping over fireballs. It's actually more difficult than it looks, and because you lose so much if you're eliminated, it makes it much more heart-pounding, which I'm always a fan of. And the final minigame on this entire list is Take a Stab, a soundstage minigame. Players have to thrust their Joy-Cons forward with perfect timing to shish kebab the fruit thrown by Lakitu. It is probably the most precise soundstage minigame in Super Mario Party, but I love the challenge. I really enjoy the pirate theme, but I love the food theme of Jamboree's Rhythm Kitchen minigame on Barb a little more. There's so many different pieces of food, and I love that some pieces require more than one player to skewer, which is another reason I prefer this minigame. Everyone's working together. It's a great minigame to finish this video off. And there you have it, every originating minigame that inspired future minigames. To circle back to the questions we asked in the beginning of this video, how many minigames did Nintendo reuse or take inspiration from, and are they better than the original? Well, they used a lot. I tried counting how many, but I kept losing track. I would say at least 5. In most cases, sadly, I have to say that the reused or reimagined minigames are better than the original, but not always. Sometimes Nintendo's ambitions get the best of them, and they lose track of what made the original so fun. But overall, they did a great job. Maybe in a few years when a new Mario Party comes out, we'll see if they decide to reuse or reimagine any more minigames from the past, or come up with completely new ones. My bet is both. Thank you so much for watching this video, it truly means the world to me. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys later. Deuces!